Okay. Good evening. Welcome to our November 5th, 2020 school board meeting. In accordance with an act to implement provisions necessary to the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Maine in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, as enacted to read Section G11 MRSA Section 403-A, public proceedings through remote access during declaration of a state of emergency to COVID-19 and for 30 days following the termination of that state of emergency. The regular board meeting will be held through Google Meet. The meeting will be live streamed and available for viewing at www.msad11.org. Again, that's www.msad11.org. Members of the public wishing to make a comment are invited to do so during the public comment sections of the meeting. May call 207-582-5346 or send an email, schoolboard@msad11.org. Again, the number is 207-582-5346 or send an email to schoolboard, capital S, capital B, @msad11.org. In addition to the regular public comment section at the beginning of the board agenda, an additional public comment section has been added at the end of the agenda to provide the school board with the ability to answer questions sent to them during the meeting. Pursuant to subsection 403A of 1 MRSA Maine Revised Statutes Annotated, we will now confirm that each member of the MSAD11 School Board can hear and be heard. We will do this by calling the roll. Members present are asked to say yay. We ask all board members to listen and respond to any audio difficulties when the roll is complete. Pat, would you call the roll?
Yes.
Thank
Becky
you.
Fless.
Yay.
Veronica Babcock.
Yay.
Nancy Fortier Brown.
Yay.
Teresa Garrett. Teresa? Matthew Lillybridge. Jim Lothridge.
Here.
Nicole Madore.
Here.
Matthew Marshall.
Here.
Patrick Saucier.
Here.
Alyssa Tracy.
Here.
John Umland. Tony Veet.
Here.
Quinton Martin.
Here.
That's it, Becky. You have right now 3 people absent. I do know that Matthew Lillybridge called in, that he's on his way. So hopefully he will be joining us. I know John Umlin will not make it tonight. And Teresa Garrett was on the policy committee meeting. So she will hopefully be joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Administrative staff?
All right, Pat Hopkins, Superintendent of Schools. And then I will call on administrators. Andrea Dish.
Andrea Dish, Business Manager.
Angela.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Chad.
Chad Kempton, High School Principal.
Christina.
Christina O'Neill, Principal at Pittston Randolph Consolidated School.
Alicia.
Alicia Morris, Director of Special Services.
Gabe.
Gabe Dostey, Director of Operations.
John.
John LaPeria, Middle School Principal.
Josh.
Josh Farr, Director of Adult Education.
Katie.
Katie Gould, Principal at Helen Thompson School.
Karen.
Karen Moody, Building Principal of Laura Richards School.
Terry.
Terry McGuire, Director of Technology.
Nate.
Nate Stubbard, Athletic Director.
Vicky,
Vicki Duguay, Principal, Riverview Community School.
and that is it for administrators presently.
Great, thank you very much. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comments for items on the agenda?
Yes, the school board received 2 emails today from members of the public. The first one was from Megan Carlson. If I may, I will read her email. She says, I am a parent of a kindergartner at LER and a 4th grader at Riverview Community School, and I am writing today to urge you to please keep our district in red. The transitions to and from hybrid remote are too difficult to implement on and off again. It would be best to give the children and teachers an opportunity to settle into a predictable routine until the cases of COVID in Maine are dramatically improved. I feel that it will be impossible to maintain yellow status or to go green with people entering quarantines frequently, and I anticipate with more than 100 new cases each day, we may see this more often. I understand how important in-person learning is and the challenges parents and teachers face with remote learning. However, I personally will not be comfortable sending my children back to school, especially if another switch to red is inevitable. Myself and many of the parents I have spoken to have all considered seriously that removing our kids from in-person learning would be best. The risk for exposure and the stress of back and forth is far too great. The safety and predictability of all remote learning seems like a wise choice at this time, and I plead with you to consider my comment. I am grateful to all of you and everyone working hard in MSAD11 to make this work for our kids. Please accept my gratitude and be gentle on yourself during these hard times. Stay safe. Then we received a letter from Katie Lebe. Good morning. My family just finished a school-related quarantine. I feel the school system needs to stay in red due to the rise in COVID cases, and with the holidays rapidly approaching, it's most likely going to increase. If we do not continue in red, we plan on keeping our kids home for remote learning. We do not want to do another school-related quarantine or be the cause of disrupting other families. In-school learning is best, however, it is my opinion that it is not worth the risk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see. No other public comments?
None. I'm just looking at my email. None that I see right now. No.
All right, thank you. Prioritization of, and we'll talk about this later in the agenda about the return to school. So I'll just let those comments sit for now. Review and approval of agenda minutes, prioritization of items, and
no revision since the revised agenda that was posted yesterday.
okay. So approve. May I have a motion then, please, to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Alyssa. May I have a second? Second by Jim. Questions or comments regarding the agenda from anyone? Pat, would you please call the roll?
Becky Fless,
Yay.
Veronica Babcock,
Yay.
Nancy Fortier Brown.
Yay.
Is Teresa Garrett, has she joined us?
Yay.
Yay. Matthew Lillybridge,
Yay.
Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Nicole Medor, Matthew Marshall,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yay.
Tony V,
Yay.
Quentin Martin.
Yay.
That's unanimous, Becky.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of previous meetings, the regular board meeting of October 1st. May I have a motion, please?
I will move to approve. But I
Thank
would
you. Thank you,
discuss-
Tony. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Nancy. Motion by Tony, second by Nancy. Pat, will you please call the roll?
But before I do, Tony has brought forward a concern that there is a slight error in the minutes. That he is listed as being present at the last meeting when indeed he was absent. So he would like to, his motion, I would assume, would include that adjustment.
A correction, yes, please, to show
Okay.
that I was present at that meeting.
Great.
Okay, so a motion then to amend the minutes to reflect that Tony was absent.
I think so.
Yes, is Nancy okay with that amendment?
I am.
Thank you. Will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Becky Fless,
Yay.
Veronica Babcock,
Yay.
Nancy Forty,
Yay.
Teresa Garrett,
Yay.
Matthew Lillybridge,
Yay.
Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Nicole Madore, Matthew Marshall,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yay.
Tony V,
Yay.
and Quentin Martin.
Yay.
That's unanimous, Becky.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is recognitions and celebrations.
Yes. Last month, Becky and I received an email from a gentleman whose name is Bruce Flaherty. Bruce is the Maine Spirit of America president, and he notified Becky and me that the Gardner Area High School Thanksgiving Food Drive was selected for the 2020 Maine Spirit of American Education Tribute, and that yeah, I see claps. It's very exciting. Gardner Area High School, the Thanksgiving Drive, was one of 11 school districts recognized throughout the state for its service to the community. So we have with us tonight Jen Boudreau, who is a teacher at the high school, and Rita Tran, who's also a high school teacher. And they are with us tonight so that we can recognize them, celebrate with them. And I've asked them to just be prepared to just give you like a 1-minute update on what the plan is for the Thanksgiving basket distribution this particular year. We do have a gift certificate that we will deliver to Rita and to Jen. And Mr. Flaherty has asked that when we make that delivery, if we would do so with someone who has a camera so that we could take a picture and send it to the newspaper. So the thought was that maybe we could do that delivery probably the Monday of Thanksgiving break, when these ladies and all of their helpers are in the process of distributing Thanksgiving baskets for this coming year. So Jen and Rita, if you're right there, I can't see you, but if you're there, if you would like to say anything.
I'm going to hand off to Rita. She's been leading this, leading the baskets this year, and as I was handling inductions. So thank you for this, though. This is pretty cool.
This year, it's our plan right now, which is always, it's kind of like a moving target this year, but our plan right now, we met with the kids, is that we are planning to start our canned food drive, and this year we're putting a little twist on it. We have a competition that we started and are hoping to get started between the sports teams and the clubs at Gardner Area High School. We have 3 levels of prizes: first, second, and third. Monetary money for the clubs. that raised the most first, second, and third place. We also include community service options for just kids who want to contribute, and that's kind of a bonus for it. We also were talking and hoping the week of the, it's the 16th through the 20th, possibly Tuesday and Thursday, having a canned food drive for anybody in the community from 3 to 5 who would like to contribute. We already have the kids out doing like our turkey hunt, hitting up the local grocery stores for help there. And the list is now presently, last time I talked to Melissa, was up to 206 names, and we're just at the beginning. Our goal is to reach 250 baskets this year, because we feel that there is going to be much more need out there. The kids have signed up for delivering, or we're not for delivering, we're not going to allow them to deliver, but to hand out and also to put together the Friday before Thanksgiving. And again, all of this is pending on whether we're red or hybrid at that time. So as I said, it's kind of a moving target, but we have all of the parts in motion, and we are hoping to deliver or to hand out 250 baskets this year. So we were hoping maybe if we get out to the community that we can even have more canned foods to hand out this year, because I think it's going to be needed.
Rita, how many baskets did you distribute last year?
We had 200.
Wow, so you're looking to increase by 50. That's pretty significant. Wow, that's impressive.
Well, considering we're already with the names combined, because we reach out to the communities. Melissa does this for us for names. And right now she has been given, I think last count she told me was like 206 names. And we're just hitting the beginning. We always get several kind of last minute and whatnot. So we're hoping that is our goal. And we have 2 of our kids right on your board there who are hardworking at it. Quentin is going to create a advertisement that we're hoping to get out there to maybe on the school website, if possible, to push this and maybe get even more enthusiasm for it, because I think it's going to be needed this year. So.
Well, I know I was at Rotary this morning, and Rotary plans on donating about 100 turkeys.
And we are,
yeah, amazing. So
that has cut the significant number out of what we have to get. And as of right now, I think I have, and I'm going to put it back out there from staff, and we usually get a good number from the bus drivers as well. We have 20 already from staff that have been promised. So
how do members of the community or members of the board make a donation if they wish?
To either contact Jen or I via email, and if they want to do a monetary donation, they can drop it off in the front office, and Diane or Christina will make sure that it gets put into the account. And if you're looking to donate turkeys, we are still looking probably at probably another 150 or so. We are asking that if people like to donate, to please send an email to me. I'm keeping track of the numbers that we have donated, and that if it's possible, just because of refrigeration, if they can be delivered on Monday morning when we put them together, when we put or hand the baskets out that evening. But if somebody would like to donate and cannot, please send me an email, and I will. I do have some access to some refrigeration storage, but not a lot. So
yeah, same here. We can make that work. But if we are in red, we will adjust. And the plan is we're still going to be making, the food will still go out. And we're just going to have the adults handing out food. We want to make sure that the kids are safe as well. And we can guarantee very well social distancing. But we couldn't do any of this without Melissa and Grace Walton. They are amazing, and they have taught us everything we need to know about Thanksgiving baskets last year. And so they're definitely the ones that are behind this, and they're amazing. So.
And it's being asked, ladies, can someone make a monetary donation? And if so, who do they send that to, and who do they make it out to?
Gardner Area High School for the National Honor Society, and Melissa will handle that. She'll put it into our student activity account, and that's where we pull money out of when we purchase food from IGA and other places as well. So,
send it to Melissa Gregoire's attention, or send it to one of you, to Melissa Gregoire?
Melissa Gregoire. She'll let us know. She'll let us know who where it comes from. And
okay.
So anyway, thank you.
Perfect. Questions from the board or comments before we move on?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Are they looking for frozen or fresh turkeys?
Frozen.
Frozen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you being here tonight. And congratulations for being recognized for all your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for doing it. It's amazing that the need is as great as it is in our community. 250 baskets for Thanksgiving is really, that's a sizable need within the community that we need to consistently recognize, I think. It goes beyond Thanksgiving.
We also have outside as well, because this is one of the few organizations, many aren't doing it this year because of COVID, that we've even got requests from outside of the town, of our school district area, which Melissa is starting a list, but first and foremost priority is our community on it.
So before you reply yes to someone outside the community, you're making certain.
That's if we can, we will, but our families in this community come first. So
that's great.
But it takes a village. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it does take a village. You're right. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work. All right, moving along.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Quentin Martin, the Great American Rivalry Series.
Sure. So also want to recognize our own Quentin Martin. Quentin was chosen to be a top scholar athlete in the Great American Rivalry Series, which is sponsored by the NFL Hall of Fame. He is one of 144 scholar athletes in the entire country to receive this honor, along with a $5,000 scholarship. And he is in the running for the Hall of Fame team, in which the top 25 students by vote are awarded this honor. I know I went in and voted, Quentin. So congratulations, Quentin. And I'm not sure if there's anything that you want to add to that. Is there an update on the vote? Do you know where you stand?
Well, currently I am third in the country in terms of votes. So the only thing I'd say is please keep voting for me. I'd appreciate it.
Can you do multiple votes or only one?
Yeah, no, you can vote as many times as you want. The only rule is that there are no rules. So yeah.
Quentin, maybe tomorrow, if you have a moment, if you would send out that link to the entire board, that would be great.
Absolutely.
I thought it was one and you're done. So I don't know that I still have the link. I would vote again.
Yeah, I can do that for sure.
Great.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Correspondence?
Just as written.
Okay. Committee reports. Finance Committee. CRF procurement memo.
Becky,
Yes.
before finance, there was a curriculum committee meeting.
Oh, I didn't even see that. I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
Curriculum, Matthew, can you fill us in? He's struggling with his connection, he says.
Angela, would you provide an overview for us then?
Sure. We met virtually, and our two instructional coaches joined us. So Lindsay Bickford and Karen Collin joined us and discussed their experience being coaches in a virtual and hybrid situation, and how they've pivoted a little bit from strictly literacy and math coach to more broadly instructional coaches to include those content areas and instructional technology. And they are busier than ever. The teachers are doing a great job reaching out to them, and they're working very hard to be responsive and changing our approach no matter our situation. So I'm really grateful to them, and they bring a real sense of positive energy to our community. So thank you for supporting that. We also discussed our assessments. Basically, we went through the timeline of assessments that we provide across the district, and then the timeline for state assessments in the spring. And then the fact that one of our fourth grades at Pittston Randolph School was selected for the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which will happen this winter, potentially. We're registered for that. And that's a selection process that happens at the state level. And then we discussed a little bit of the learning plans, where we're at, and just provided opportunity for the curriculum committee members to ask some questions about the experience, and we documented that in our minutes. If Matt has a connection, I don't know if there's anything else he wants to add, but I think that's
I apologize. I was prepared to do this, but I got dumped like 2 seconds before.
Isn't that the way?
It's happened a couple times. Keeping on, but I just wanted to point out that the coaches have been absolutely key to helping staff get through everything that they have to deal with in regards to remote learning. They've supported every teacher whenever and wherever they needed it, and it doesn't matter when it came to doing it, even after hours, they were there. And I think that we did a great job. I think it was a great decision that we made to add Karen Collin. So thank you to my fellow board members. I think it was a smart thing to do. And the only other thing that I know Angela didn't touch on is the IT part of it. I know Terry gave us a quick brief on where we were at, the challenges that we had and are still having with bandwidth and equipment within the classroom to remote teach. And, we went to red very quickly. And I think that, I don't know if, I haven't heard that we've been taxed a little bit in that area, but Terry, would you be willing to give a little bit of a quick rundown as to where we're at with the IT piece?
Sure. First off, I want to say that you are absolutely correct. Lindsay and Karen have been a godsend for us and for the teachers. It has been really awesome having help. There's a lot of other people in the buildings that are helping. I was in a call yesterday with some of the middle school staff and some of the high school staff, and it was really, really awesome because somebody would ask a question and 3 or 4 people would say, I can help you with that. So the staff has been really great to support one another. I think we're all going kind of through this. The high school and the middle school, the high school staff and the middle school special ed teachers have been teaching both remote and live students at the same time. And so they've been pretty supportive of the other people who are going to go through that probably coming up. Today, we had the other groups go totally red for the first time this year. And there were definitely some nervous, some bugs along the way, but I'm absolutely positive that it will get better. And I think people did a pretty good job. I think we're much more prepared than we were last March for this. As far as the network upgrade that we have going right now, the high school is very, very close to being done. Maybe, it's really pretty much done for the wiring. The middle school will probably be done at the end of next week for wiring. We have about half of the LCD projectors mounted, which if you think about 153 projectors and a few people mounting, that's really great. They've been, James Risch and Greg Gorham have been working really hard on that. We have most of our air tames coming in. We're about ready to plug those in, and we're about ready to plug the teacher laptops in at the high school and the middle school. So we think that will really improve the connectivity there. Teacher laptops have been shipped. They are on the way. So we're all really excited about that. So the teachers will have 2 machines instead of the 1. I walked into a Pittston room this morning and saw a teacher on 2 laptops, and I had to really smile because it was a Chromebook and a MacBook. So some of the teachers have already started that without really being told that they had to or that they could. So I think we're really in good shape. We delivered Ladybug. It's a document camera, the really nice document camera, and it has made a huge difference in teaching and learning in our district. I think teachers are very happy for the Ladybugs. So I think we're doing well. I think we're on the cusp of hopefully being able to teach at the middle school like we're doing at the high school. It will be a really great test to plug those laptops in and give it a try.
Thank you, Terry.
Terry, what does a document camera do?
A document camera does a ton. These document cameras do a lot of things, but basically what it is, it's an external device that you hook onto your computer, or you can hook it onto the projector. And what it does is it either takes a video or pictures of what you pointed at. So for example, if I wanted to show something that I was writing, I could put a piece of paper down and I would show what I was writing, and it would show that. If I wanted to show students a leaf or a lab experiment, it would take a video of that and the students could see it live. So it's a really nice high-end resolution camera that shows pictures or video to people who are remote.
Does it also record as it's videotaping?
You can do that with these. Not all do, but this one does.
So that students could go back and see it again?
Correct.
That's awesome.
Terry, Matthew Lillybridge said, so it's an updated overhead projector?
Yeah, it's an overhead projector that does video. Absolutely. Yep.
That's very cool. Thank you. Anything else from curriculum?
I think we're good.
Great. Thanks, Matthew. Let's see, next, Finance Committee. Finance met on October 20th. Let's see, the committee members were updated regarding the district's use of coronavirus relief funds. The facilities modification to meet the ventilation guidelines as recommended by the CDC, we are using of the 1.6 million, let's see, $1,623,236.10. $447,833.20 are being used for a facility modification to meet ventilation guidelines as recommended by the CDC. $124,105.07 toward materials and supplies, signage, disinfecting materials, health supplies, nurse, and PPE. $10,959 for food service equipment. $300,000 in salaries, contracted services, additional personnel to support the hybrid instruction model, pandemic response coordinator, and additional hours to clean and disinfect. $11,000 for social and emotional learners, the professional development for those for that, and $682,226.37 in technology, hardware, and software to support our remote instruction. Also included in that was $178,651 for MacBooks, $118,546 for Chromebooks, $371,804.53 for supplies, including but not limited to projectors and document cameras, and $13,224.84 for software licenses. The CRF number 2, which is $1,703 and $1,703,073.40. Those big numbers are very hard to say. I just want to say that right out loud. So that the second round of monies is spent this way: $338,846.35 for student supports, $8,540 in student iPads, $44,791.64 for special ed student supports, $285,514.71 for Chromebooks and airtime wired Ethernet PoE, $3,148.83 for staff supports, teacher supports for special ed students, $521,500.34 for school administration, $360,445.51 telecommunications system, $20,000 COVID-related legal fees, $133,554.83 for surveillance cameras, and $7,500 for remote timesheet software.
Becky, that's the end, but can I note that there is something missing here? What's missing is an update to the air ventilation system, just like we have in CRF 1. It's part 1. In CRF 1 and CRF 2, we have the remaining schools, which would include the high school, the middle school, and Helen Thompson. And I don't remember the amount. It was probably somewhere around 400,000, and that is missing from these minutes.
So can we adjust these minutes?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And then the superintendent provided a memo to the board, and all of these numbers are included in that as well. That's not exactly true at all. It's
there's more to that. That really has to do with the fact that we were not able to go out to bid.
Correct. Yeah. Do you want to explain that? Do you want me to take my hand at it, or?
Why don't we let Andrea? Andrea spent the most time speaking with the attorney about this. So Andrea, would you speak to it?
Sure. There are federal guidelines and district policy that we have to abide to for the procurement of goods and services. Specifically, they are very specific when it comes to using federal monies. However, in your board policy, you have an exception due to limited timelines or an emergency. So what what we have done is notified the board, because of the short timeline that we are required to spend the CRF funds we have through December 30th, that we don't have time to go out to a formal bid process. So we created a memo listing all of the things that we have purchased that would have otherwise fallen within the federal bid procedure or your board policy, that we have purchased, avoiding the system because of, or avoiding the procedure due to the short time. Does that make sense?
Yes, and this memo is included in the board packet that was distributed to all board members and made available to the public, should anyone wish to look at it.
It's actually at the end of the Finance Committee meeting minutes for anyone who would like to see it. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Wellness Committee?
I've been too busy. I have not attended, so I can't give you an update. Katie, any chance that you were at that last meeting? No.
I'm sorry to
So
say
there were minutes in the agenda in the
Yeah.
packet, so I would just reference you to the minutes.
Yes, that's fine.
Every day is a wellness committee for you.
Right. Every day is a wellness day for Pat. Okay, next is ad hoc committees, turf committee, and there was a meeting. We canceled the meeting last week because we were unable to pull it together, but we did meet yesterday, and we met for about 45 minutes. I'm wondering, Gabe, if you would mind speaking a little bit to your portion.
Yep, sure. I can just give you a quick update, kind of where we're at. So we have the hard copy of the final draft of the turf field plans and an electronic copy. So I've been sending those out to some of the contractors. Had a meeting not this Wednesday, but last Wednesday with Seth McGee on the field at the high school, just to kind of go through the design. And there's one part of the plan that part of the permitting we need to do first before anything happens. So we looked at that. There's a outflow pipe that we need it's what they call a plunge pool. It's just to catch all the water so it doesn't erode any of the ground around it. That's the first thing that we'll need to do before anything happens to the field. So meeting with Seth, we looked over that, looked over where the dirt would be going. And he's taken the plans and he's going to actually price out each portion of the design for us. So we'll have a solid number for each of the components in the project. McGee Construction they bid on quite a few of these projects across the state. So they have a good grasp of this type of project and what would go in it. So he's willing to do that. EJP has the designs also. So they're working up the mock-up for the piping, all those sort of things that kind of will tie this whole project together. So I'm right now waiting on numbers to come back from McGee, so we at least have assigned to each portion of the project. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. Just kind of waiting for McGee to get back to me on that portion. And then once we have that, we can I'll forward that off to Andrea so we can all have that and have another committee meeting. So I don't know if there's anything else you want me to talk about, Becky, or not.
So not immediately, but so after Gabe brought us up to speed about that, we did talk about, we have sent the funds that we had raised to the turf company quite some time ago. So in that account, there is $37,000 left. And we are considering where the board is with regard to fundraising to continue the project, because it's been, we're in our second year of raising money for this project. We are in the midst of a pandemic. People are out of work, and it's a different situation than it was when we started. There is not a feeling among this committee that we don't want to do the project, but we want to continue to be fully transparent with the board to talk about how we should proceed when it comes to fundraising. How do we, at this moment in time, should we be out in the community asking for money? Is that a sensitive thing to do? And I want to include the board in these conversations. And Matt, I'd encourage you, Matt Marshall is on the committee as a board member also. And I would encourage you if you have something you want to add to that. But the one thing we do feel that we could do is to get started to see any kind of movement or motion is to use, depending on the cost, which we'll learn from Gabe from this punch pool and the trees that need to be removed behind the softball field. that perhaps we could begin to just show the slightest bit of movement by creating that second egress, and taking down the trees and creating that pool if we have enough money, if depending on what that $37,000 can do before we move forward. But I think we do. Well, I know we want to have a conversation with the board about how they're feeling about this at this period of time. And Matt, if there's anything you want to.
Yeah, Becky, I just want to add that I thought it was important during the meeting, and I articulated that it's important. We're extremely transparent, board and the
Right.
taxpayers. It's the time. We have no idea what next year's budget's going to look like. And I think that I'm a supporter of the field, but given the where we're at right now, we really need to take a hard look at everything. And people are hemorrhaging on their budgets at home, and it's tough. I don't want anybody to think that pay taxes to any of our communities that we're going out willy-nilly and just spending money and going crazy. I just think it's important that we take that into account and that we share everything that we're doing, and there's no secrets. And and I think that given we have a little bit of cash in that pot of money, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's going to help the egress anyway. We really wanted to do something over there regardless. So if we could kind of get started and get moving a little bit, we have the money. I think maybe we need to consider it. But it was important. It's important for me anyway to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. When Gabe initially said there could be, I got the impression from Gabe's brief during the committee meeting that there may be some added expenses that we weren't aware of, that were going to be covered by MainX, was initially the company. And I just want to make sure that we're all above board and everybody knows what's going on and there's no surprises. Is that about right, Becky?
That's right. And I would agree with you. We talked quite a bit yesterday, Andrea, as our business manager, just wanting not to be tone deaf in any way to what's happening within our community. These are some really unusual, specific times that we're living in right now. And while we have made a commitment to our school and to our athletes, we also want to make sure that we are that we're thoughtful, that we're transparent, and that we know what we're getting into before we do anything. And because of the length of time that has transpired since these gifts were made, costs may be different. And also the plans changed fairly dramatically in the amount of dirt that needs to be, and help me, Gabe, if I'm not using the right terminology, but the amount of dirt that needs to be pulled off of the field is much, much more. It goes much deeper than what we had initially talked about. So whatever comes out has to go back in, but it goes back in a different form and a different material. And those materials will have costs associated with them that we did not necessarily have initially in our plan. And so we need to know right up front before we do anything what those costs will be. And that's a large part of what Gabe is working on, is just trying to assess what those costs will be.
Hey, Becky, if I might add.
Yes.
I think given what our kiddos are going through right now, I think this is a great thing for them in the future. And I think we need to stay on track. I use the analogy, we're getting a $65,000 brand new Cadillac for $20,000. That's the analogy that I use, with all the donations and all the,
Right.
in labor and work and materials. And I think everybody in our community, they're still down with it. It's just, I think we just don't need to let it wither on the vine. And I think it's a great thing for our kids in the out years. And we just need to press on.
Hey, Becky, I have a comment.
Yes.
So I know it's been about a year now that I've been on the board, and I know this started before, and I've heard both you, Matt, and others talk about sort of how it all fits together, but it might be helpful to create like a one-pager or something that we could share with the community to explain, like Matt saying, we already had money set aside these things are donated, not obviously exact amounts, but I think that might be helpful to that point of transparency, right? If it's something we can do now and then everyone just sort of understands that, I could get behind that and I would feel more comfortable just knowing how it all is coming together. That makes sense.
I think it's important. All of the donors so far, Alyssa, have been recognized, but I think it is also really very, very important for the public to know who has donated and what the investment has been. So I like that idea, and I'm not opposed to actually publishing every person that is donated in some ways, just so that the public knows what kind of support we have had. And that there's a need for continued support moving forward to help this so that it doesn't wither on the vine. None of us wants that to happen. And, we're not, none of us wants to watch this. None of us wants this to stop. We all want it to go forward. And I'm concerned that this sounds negative. And that's not my intention. So let me be really clear about that. I don't have a negative feeling about this. I just want us to be thoughtful. So if anybody can bail me out of being negative, help me. I'm ready to be pulled up. Yes, Matt.
So Becky, Nate brought up a great point during our meeting that, you have some contributors that have donated significant amount of money, and
yes,
we're delayed. I get that, but I think that we have the potential of losing contributors if we don't continue to push forward. Maybe not full steam ahead, but we need to show that we're doing something, right?
Right.
They're
Correct.
expecting to see their company logo on the 50-yard line, and they put up $25,000, and it's not happening. And this has the potential to just completely crumble, and I think we need to be thinking about that.
You're right. And there are so many companies within the community that, you're right, are expecting to see their names on the field, and they've contributed hundreds of hours of time and resources already. Black Diamond, Steve McGee, Mainex, EJP. So yes, so all of these contributors within our community are behind this project. And none of us wants to see that stop. Chad, I would welcome you. And Nate, if you want to speak to this, I'd be happy to turn it over to you for a moment.
Chad, it's all you.
He just texted me and said, we're going to get this done.
There he is.
And
There he
yes,
is.
we are going to get this done. Thank you, Chad. Please.
Yeah, so I just want to say that we are well into this project. We've got a huge amount of support from the community. We've got a ton of donations. We've got great support, and I have no doubt that even though we have suffered some setbacks, primarily with the pandemic, and it took a ton of work on Black Diamond's part to get the project approved. We're going to get this done, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be a trademark for the community. It's going to be something that brings people into the community. It's going to help us bring business into the community. It's going to help bring people. It's going to be a moneymaker. And we're very fortunate to have the people behind this project that we have, and the amount of money that we've raised, whether it's people donating $150 for a brick or upwards to, hundreds of thousands of dollars towards the project. So I hope that we are still full steam ahead, because as Matt said, this is a Cadillac, an $80,000 Cadillac for $20,000 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And when we invest in it, we are investing in the future. And yes, we're in a pandemic right now, but the pandemic isn't going to be forever. So future thinking here is where I'm at, is that down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, we are going to be sitting on a awesome facility, and it's going to be a great thing for this community. So I hope we can be forward thinking and know that we can work through this. Where there's a will, there's a way. We have the will. Let's find the way.
And if I can just add to what Chad just said, Becky and Matt were absolutely right. The plans have changed since the beginning of this project. I think the initial amount that we were going to strip from that field, we were going to go down about 6 inches. Now we're having to go down about 18 inches, and whatever you take out, you've got to put back in. But we have an awesome group of people who are working on this project with us, and they have donated an amazing amount of time, an amazing amount of effort. And I feel confident. Obviously we won't know for sure until those figures come in, but I know that those groups that are helping us now are willing to step up and help more. And getting back to the fundraising part, this is a terrible time for a lot of people, but there are a lot of businesses that are thriving through this pandemic. It's just the way it's worked out. And so we would like the opportunity to begin the fundraising efforts again and kind of go talk to some of those businesses that are thriving. And we kind of know who they are. So that's kind of what we're asking for tonight, so we can start moving forward for with this project again.
Just one last thing is that, with all of the gloom and doom that goes around this pandemic, people need a positive. And this is a huge positive for a lot of people. Not everybody, but the fact that we can work through these challenging times and make something great happen is going to be a huge positive for this community. I know it is. I've been here for 22 years, and the people in this community want this to happen. And anyone that we ask for help is going to help. I know that that's the case. That's what this community is all about. So
I just want to say something real quick. Nate and Chad, you guys have been phenomenal. And I think moving forward, if the school board, the rest of the school board agrees, I think that this is a perfect opportunity to try to get some donations from some businesses that are thriving, because I think they really want to help. And I think they'd be more than willing to do that. And, I just this is a little bit weird, but I kind of would like to kick it to Quentin and see what his opinion is of the field moving forward, knowing that he probably and obviously won't be able to play on it, which is unfortunate. But Quentin, what are your thoughts about the turf field?
Well, in terms of how I'm not going to be able to play on it or anything, I don't really think it's about me necessarily. I think it's more about the community, and the fact that I won't be able to play on it doesn't really bother me. I love Hoke Field anyway, and I would love it if it was all charred and burned or whatever. I just love the field. So, but what I think it would be amazing for the community, like how you guys have been saying. I think it's awesome, and I think that pushing forward is absolutely the right thing to do, whether I can play on it or not. So, yeah, I think it's great.
Quentin, you can come back and coach on it.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll see.
Great point.
So you're right, Chad and Nate, both of you are right, that this is a wonderful opportunity. It's everything that we've all hoped for our kids and for our field. And one of the things that we talked about yesterday was I was pretty clear that I did not feel as though we should move ahead without the board having conversation about it. And also that that we need to make sure that the superintendent, that Pat is still on board with us. And if she has any concerns moving forward, just about the timing and funding. And I don't want to be a wet blanket. I am concerned, but I definitely want to move forward. It's a wonderful thing for our community. All the things you're saying are right. There are some businesses that are truly thriving. Everybody needs something to feel happy and joyful about, because it's not a very happy, joyful time. So I don't disagree with any of that. I just really want to be certain that we're all on the same page, that everybody's on the same page. So Pat, do you have anything you want to add, or I'm putting
No,
you on the spot? I'm sorry.
I know we hadn't had this conversation. I didn't realize that we were going to be discussing this in such detail this evening. No, I'm fully in support of this project moving forward. I trust that those of you who are on this committee will be mindful of the impact fundraising efforts may have on particular groups of our community, while at the same time, as Nate indicated, it may be a boon for other businesses in our community who may feel like this is a really good time for them to join in. The only hesitation that I have at all is moving forward before you really know the full scope of the project, because there's been some setbacks, some changes, some modifications. I think the work that Gabe is doing is especially important to make sure that you know right up front what the new price tag will be, so you know exactly how much you're fundraising for, so that that can be clearly articulated and communicated to the people that you are reaching out to.
So what we decided yesterday to do was, before the pandemic, we met weekly to work on the turf committee, and we've decided, if possible, to continue to do that. So I'm going to be in touch with Gabe every Monday, and if to determine what, if any, progress, how much progress he has made as far as the costs, and along with all the other 1,000 things Gabe has to do, how he's making progress with this, and if he is, as he is making progress, because I know he will, as he's making progress, we will meet together on Wednesdays, every Wednesday that where it's prudent for us to do. We don't want to waste anybody's time. If he hasn't gotten anything done week to week, we don't want to waste anybody's time. But if he's gotten even just a little bit done, we want to support that and have as much out there, as much known about that as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Does that seem right, Chad? Is that good?
Yeah. Gabe is doing a great job working with these major contractors, and they are all working together. They're all committed to it, and they're all excited about it. It's just a matter, yes, we are going to wait and see what the recalculations are with, there's some new catch basins that needed to be put in with the DEP permit. There was the splash pool that needed to be put in. But these aren't things that are going to derail us. They're adjustments that the DEP had us make, or had Black Diamond make, in order for the project to work, and to work well. And I know that as Gabe works with Mike Chick and Seth McGee and Peter Prescott and everyone else that is in this project, that it will get done. These are great people, and they're committed to this project, and I'm just excited about the fact that the permit got taken care of, and Christian, his group has just been doing a tremendous amount of work. These people want this to be successful, and they're great at what they do. So that is in our favor as well. So I'm just excited about the fact that we're going to get started again.
And they really want it done well, because their name's going to be on it.
Absolutely.
So that's another great thing, is that they're not going to do a bad job. They're not going to do a shoddy job. Their names are all over it. So that's
around. I mean,
yeah. So I don't know if we want to do a thumbs up, Pat, or just move along.
Since you're looking for some direction from the board, I think a thumbs up would be appropriate.
Okay, I can only.
Oh, where'd you go? How about on behalf of Becky, because she left us there for a moment. I'm sure she'll be back. If you are supportive of this committee, the ad hoc committee moving forward, to resume some fundraising, if you would just give a thumbs up, please. Great. Is there anyone opposed? Becky, you left, so I continued on your behalf.
I really appreciated it. I was out of the meeting suddenly. I don't know what, maybe I hit I don't know. I'm working from a Chromebook that I've never touched before, so.
I believe it was unanimous. Matthew Lillybridge does have one comment that he would like to add.
Yes, please.
Not to beat a dead horse and everything, but I agree with everything that was been said so far. And if there's any way to propagandize, if that's a word, going forward about all the things that, our rural district is doing for, physical fitness and school spirit and all that other stuff, if we can capitalize that on somehow, in addition to local people, local businesses putting their names on and stuff like that. Colby just did their $200 million athletic center, and that's on everything. It's been in Forbes. It's gotten all this national recognition, and who knows what a new high-speed field might do for, Gardner Area High School. Just one last thing.
I think that's a great idea. Let's put our heads to that, guys, and see who we can get to recognize us. Chad and Nate, you'll be good at that.
Definitely do that. And I just want to take this opportunity to recognize these companies and these people for behind the scenes work that they've been doing for the past 6 months. And the fact that they're still committed to making this project happen.
That's a great idea.
Like the big ones are obviously Black Diamond, EJ Prescott, McGee Construction, and Maynard Construction. And then we have all of the field sponsors that have put their money into this project, and all the folks that have put the money into the recognition wall and the light pole sponsors. So there's hundreds of people out there that are supporting us in making this project happen.
We will figure out a way to recognize all of them. And we'll have to talk about that, how to make that happen. Matt, did you have something? Pardon me?
Yeah, I would just want to add that we have never, and I don't mean to use this, I don't particularly care for the term, but for lack of a better term, marketing. I mean, there's hundreds of people in our district that are doing great things. And I think we really need to take a look at marketing those great things to the community so they understand it's a feel-good thing. And
right,
the school board is a small part of that. I mean, a very small part of it. We meet every month and we make decisions and it impacts hundreds of people and hundreds of kids. But I think it's important that we talk about all the positive things that are happening in our community. And I think what we'll find is we'll have a lot more people dialing into our virtual meetings.
I think that's great. That's a great idea. Yep, that's good. Anyone else? All right, then we're going to move along and we're going to keep working on raising money for the turf field. Thank you so much, Chad and Nate, for all your hard work, for Gabe, all your hard work, and you're endlessly working and working. We really do appreciate it. And we will have many reports for you next month because we'll have met many times. General information?
Just as written, many of the positions that you see here, these are positions that we have to identify a staff member to for the Department of Education. And I just wanted you to be able to see all of the different types of responsibilities that many of our staff members have.
Great. Thank you. Nominations.
Yes, I am very excited, very happy to bring forward a nomination for our second student representative. So I'm here tonight to nominate Gwen Boldick Ignaziak. Gwen is a junior at Gardner Area High School. She was interviewed by Quentin, Veronica, Becky, Chad, and myself. And we were just overall really impressed with Gwen's preparedness for the interview, how she had practiced for it, that she was just so thoughtful and impressive when we met with her. And there was absolutely no hesitation on part of the entire interview committee to bring her name forward. We think that she'll make a remarkable addition to the school board and will really represent the student body well. So I know Gwen is here somewhere. Gwen, is there anything that you would like to say? And could you just briefly introduce yourself to the school board?
I hope you can hear me.
We can.
Awesome. I'm Gwen. My full name is Peregrine. I'm a junior. I would be really honored and excited to take this position. It would be fantastic. Interviewing with you guys was amazing, and it made my whole month. It was awesome. Yeah, I'm just excited.
So I think on behalf of the interview committee, I would recommend to the board that you make a motion to accept Gwen as a student representative to serve the remainder of this school year and next school year.
I make a motion that, oh.
Tony and Veronica, they're on it. A motion and a second. Pat, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Becky Fless?
Yes.
Veronica Babcock?
Yes.
Nancy Fortier-Brown?
Yes.
Teresa Garrett?
Yes.
Matthew Lillybridge?
Yes.
Jim Lothridge?
Yes.
Nicole Madore? Matthew Marshall?
Yes.
Patrick Saucier?
Yes.
Alyssa Tracy?
Yes.
Tony Veet?
Yes.
And Quentin Martin?
Yes.
Great, that is unanimous. Gwen,
Yay.
welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Moving
Great.
on, old business. Update on
All
the
right.
impact of COVID-19 on MSAD11. It's had no impact at all.
It's had, yeah.
None at all. Business
Yeah,
as
I just,
usual.
I thought I would start just by giving the board, the community, a bit of an update on what's been going on behind the scenes here for the last 2 weeks. And just to give you some insights into the decision-making process that we have engaged in here. Before I do, I first want to give a shout out to our school nurses. Our school nurses are just amazing. They have worked countless hours these last couple weeks, some working until 7 o'clock at night. So they're in by 7, they're working till 7, just trying to do the contact tracing. 4 of them, and I joined them on Sunday, and we spent Sunday afternoon at the high school because of the contact tracing and what we needed to do there. They're just remarkable. They're well trained, and they're really supporting our staff and our students as they do this work. It's difficult work. It's very emotional. You know, they spend time speaking with families who are really scared when they hear that their child has come in close contact with someone who has tested positive. And they have not skipped a beat. So I just want to really send out a shout to thank them for their work. It really is appreciative, and I think most families, when the nurses call them, most families are indeed very supportive. But it is important for you to understand that there are some families who are not happy with the information, that maybe don't believe that their children should be quarantined, and so some of those conversations are a bit challenging. Families who are fearful of it sometimes will take it out on our nurses. They're on the front line, and it's really unfortunate that that happens. And I think it's important that you should know that it does happen from time to time. But fortunately, overall, the majority of everyone that they speak to has been just so understanding and, again, appreciative of their work. The CDC is currently swamped with cases of COVID, and as a result, the contact tracing element. So it's important to know that all the contact tracing that occurs in MSAD11 and in all of the other schools, it falls on the shoulders of our nurses. While they speak to representatives from the CDC, they receive guidance and direction. Really, the workload is our staff's responsibility. And so this year, well, in the last 2 weeks, I think you've seen the number. We currently have 197 students across the district who are in quarantine, and 37 staff members who are in quarantine. And then we also have a few probable positives. So it's important to know that it takes a lot of time to do that contact tracing and to make sure that we're following all the rules that we need to do. Today, I want to make sure I bring this to your attention and anyone who's listening. Today, I listened to a little bit to a webinar, and what we found out is that there are parents who are shopping around. If they receive a phone call from a nurse, a school nurse, who informs them that their child needs to be quarantined, families who do not want to accept that are calling the CDC, are calling other entities to try to get a different response. And some have called the CDC and have learned that their child's name is not on the list to be quarantined. And so as a result, it's creating some confusion and some parents feeling like they don't have to quarantine their child because the CDC does not have the same information that's being shared by our school nurses. So today in the DOE, in a webinar from the DOE, they just clarified that because the CDC is so overwhelmed, there is a lag time. There is a lag time from when the information, the names that are provided to the CDC are actually inserted into their computer. And so the message that was delivered today from the Department of Education was that we need to be listening to our nurses, that when the nurses call the parents, that is the advice, the recommendation that they need to listen to. CDC may be 2-3 weeks behind of putting names of students into their system. So calling the CDC is not necessarily going to give families accurate information. Our nurses have the accurate information, they're well trained, and we need to be listening to them and following their guidance. The next piece of information I want to share, I think it's really important, is while we're currently in red, it's been a rough couple weeks, I want to make sure that all of you and the community know that the transmission of the virus did not happen in any of our schools. There has been zero transmission of COVID-19 in MSAD11 schools. All of the transmission has occurred outside of our school. It's occurred either through family contact or through other activities that have occurred on weekends, evenings, outside of school. As I said, as of today, we have 37 staff members who are currently in quarantine. We have 197 students. As of tomorrow, 28 staff at the high school and 128 students at the high school will be out of quarantine. So their 2 weeks will be up. So woohoo. So we're looking much, much better. We're having fewer students who are going to need to be quarantined. My decision to move the district this week into red is not because we have a positive case of COVID-19. I want to make that really clear. There was, some feedback that I received that people thought that because there was a single case of COVID, that's the reason why we went red. And that is not accurate. That is not the case. So each case is reviewed on an individual basis. We look at its own merits and the impact that that particular positive has on the safety of others and the overall operations of the school. That's the factor that I really use to determine what mode we're going to move into. And the nurses are at the table with me when that decision is made. Ultimately, I need to make it, but I want you to know that that decision is only made after there's been a lot of conversation and information shared and discussed. In terms of contact tracing, you go back 48 hours before symptoms appear or once symptoms appear. So when the nurses are trying to figure out who was a close contact, they're told the day that the symptoms appear, and then they go back 48 hours. So as we kind of break down what happened at the high school, we had a positive case, and we found out about the positive case over the weekend. And so when we went back 48 hours, it took us to a Thursday, which impacted cohort B. And so by having two separate cohorts, by being in the hybrid model that we're in, it benefited us greatly in this regard, because the only students and staff members impacted were the ones associated with cohort B. Then let's see, on Sunday, we did learn of a positive case at LER, a positive case at the middle school, and a positive case at Helen Thompson. The Helen Thompson one we didn't find out about till late in the day on Sunday. Again, at LER, due to when the symptoms appeared, cohort B was the only cohort impacted, not cohort A. But at that time, 4 staff members were also impacted. At the middle school, the individual involved was associated with cohort A, not cohort B. So because of that, the symptoms began to appear again over the weekend. They had to go back 48 hours. We didn't have to quarantine any staff members because the student hadn't been in school since Tuesday, right? And we were only going back to Thursday, so we were safe there with the close contact. It really came into play because of all of the students that had been in close contact with the individuals who ended up being positive. And on Sunday afternoon, when you don't have your administrative assistants in, you don't have access to all of that information, it was extremely difficult for the nurses to do all the contact tracing that needed to happen and to make some of the decisions that needed to be happen, or some of the decisions that needed to be made. So that's the reason why on Sunday afternoon, I decided to close LER and to close the middle school for a couple days so that we provided additional time for our nurses to do the contact tracing that they needed to do. We then opened up, and that left us with Pittston Randolph, with Helen Thompson, and with the Riverview School. And what we found is on, let's see, we found that we were experiencing about a 20 to a 30% absenteeism rate in the elementary schools because parents were really getting concerned. You know, they might have a sibling at one of the other schools. They weren't concerned where students were necessarily where students were being exposed to the virus. They were hearing about the Helen Thompson student, but again, the individual at Helen Thompson was a cohort A contact, so there was no need to close down Helen Thompson. But everyone just started spiraling and things started to get a bit out of control. There appeared to be a bit of a frenzy, and again, our nurses were just being completely overwhelmed with the contact tracing that they had to do, because every time we turned around, there was another close contact or another positive or a probable positive. So through all of that, I again made the decision, we just need to stop. We just need to stop. People are stressed, absolutely stressed, and really finding it challenging to do all the work that needed to be done behind the scenes to make some decisions. So that's why on Monday, I decided to put everyone in red. That gave the nurses some additional time to do the contact tracing. It allowed us to hear some test results on our probable positives, and just give us a chance to be making some decisions that were not in the heat of the moment, that were not under pressure, that we could just put a pause. And the anxiety that I was hearing from staff members, from parents, I just wanted to put that all at ease. So here we are now in red. And I think tonight, the next discussion is, what is the readiness for us to shift to green? What does that look like? We've now experienced shifting to red. So what is the readiness? Well, we're doing it now. So we'll be able to give you some what's going well with that and what's not going well, and that we need to give some attention to, potential opportunities for growth there. But also, I need to be making a decision about what next week is going to look like, and whether we're going to shift back to a yellow model, to the hybrid model, or are we going to remain in red? You received a couple emails today with people requesting that we remain in red. Do we shift to yellow, or do you shift to green? What does that really look like? So that's kind of the conversation that I hope that we have from this point forward. Any questions on the information that I just shared?
I have a question.
Yes.
What determines a probable positive? What is that definition?
A probable positive would be an individual who was a close contact and now has symptoms. So because they were a close contact and they're showing COVID-like symptoms, that's the only determination to make them a probable positive.
Okay, so they just haven't gotten their test results as of yet.
Correct. They then, as a result of showing symptoms, they have to go be tested, and then we will wait to find out whether those test results come back positive or not. Many of them have returned negative.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Okay, then earlier I sent to you a document. I shared with you a document that is the readiness to shift to green and the readiness to shift to red. I just realized that I did not share that with Quentin, and I did not share that with Gwen. So I am sending those two documents to you right now so that you can have them in front of you as well. And then I will bring them up on the screen for members of the public to see. Now, what I just shared with you, you all have editing rights, but I would ask you not to edit that, please. I didn't take the time, I was rushing. And so I did not change it over to just give you viewing rights. All right, so I'd like to start with, let's see. I think I would like to start with red, if you're okay with that, because that is the situation that we have been in. So hopefully everyone can see this. And I would ask administrators if you would help in reviewing and sharing some of this information with the board members. So under the high school, if you look at the first one, the high school was already doing synchronous learning. I have asynchronous. It's supposed to be synchronous learning, which means that they are live streaming. So there is no to little impact on instruction with the movement to red. Chad, is there anything that you can add to that?
I'm just looking for a battery charger right now, so I looked down and my battery is almost dead.
Okay.
So what I would say is that my folks at the high school have been doing a fantastic job starting out in yellow and doing the synchronous learning with kids both being in the building and being online. And I got to say that they're doing a tremendous job with that. And they're also at a point where they're helping others out. A group of my folks helped set in on a middle school staff meeting the other day and gave the middle school teachers some perspective on what their challenges were, what their successes were, what's working, what's not working. So my folks are doing a fantastic job, with that. It's not perfect by any means, and we would obviously like it to be better, but it's the situation we're in, and we're making the best out of it. Going to red is actually probably easier for us because you're just dealing with teaching in one platform and not two. So going to red is actually, or to green is actually easier for us than yellow, but yellow is a good happy medium.
Thank you, Chad. Next, we have the middle school. And as Chad has just mentioned, and it was also mentioned by Terry earlier on, the staff at the middle school are currently working with John and Angela to prepare to shift to teaching synchronously sometime in the near future, which means, again, that they would teach both cohort A and cohort B at the same time. Synchronous learning we sometimes refer to as live streaming as well. And so that would give those students access to their classroom teacher, regular instruction 4 days a week, just like at the high school. The question that we still do have for that is whether our network can handle having 2 schools live streaming at the same time. John, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add is, so we got a little bit of experience today teaching what I would call semi-synchronously. The teachers had both cohorts on Google Meets today with live instruction. I think a couple challenges we had, our 2 administrative assistants had to call some kids to get them up and get them to class because they're not used to this. So we made some calls this morning. I checked in with some team leaders and some teachers today. And although there was a heightened sense of anxiety because they haven't done it before, after a little bit of time, they enjoyed it. Things went well, but there are always going to be some hiccups. And I had told them this isn't going to be a perfect thing right now. It's going to be a work in progress. So I think for this only being our second day, there were some successes, and I will tell you, I got there was an email from a mother that said that her daughter was so excited on a non-cohort day to be in a Google meeting with her teacher.
It's great news. So the hope is that you will be able to make that transition, whether we are in red or yellow, sometime after Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Yes. And I would like to say, Pat, real quick, I just want to really give props to the high school staff. I know this can be really nerve-wracking for people going from one way of teaching to another, and I thought it was really important for our staff to hear the voices and the stories from the high school. And Chad really came through, and his staff. I think it may have caused more anxiety to our staff, but I think it also brought a little bit of sense of calm to knowing that these people have done it. They're being successful with it, and kind of gave them some perspective of what it would look like. So I really appreciate the support from the high school.
Thank you, John. All right, with the elementary staff, well, the administrators kind of broke their list down into a couple. First, what is working. The collaboration that has happened out of necessity has really been amazing. Everyone is just pitching in and supporting each other. Earlier in the meeting, we were talking about our new coaches and how the coaches are just being present and providing immediate on-demand professional development, both in the building and virtually, for whoever needs it. We have a lot more hardware that we've already talked about. We're getting some positive feedback from families, and it certainly is making it easier for our special ed staff to go red because they're already doing some online teaching, and to have all of the students together is just making it easier for them. There are certainly some challenges. Why don't I turn it over maybe to Karen Moody? Are you there, Karen? Many of these are some challenges that you highlighted. Would you like to mention them to the board?
Sure. So our youngest learners haven't done a lot of Google meetings at all. Teachers have been trying to teach them how to use the seesaw, so they haven't really participated in Google Meets. So some of the feedback from families, there was a lot of noise. There was a lot of movement. Some of the younger ones didn't really understand how to use the computer for the group meeting, and one child was trying to lick the screen. So that was a little bit challenging. Yeah, it was funny to watch that. And then some of the hours for the live instruction are a problem. So some families are still working. So because we're in red without their choice, a lot of parents are working, and the children are going to daycares or to other family members for childcare. Parents aren't there to do the instruction with the children. So those hours are really a struggle for them. There's more and more need for skills for our support staff too, to be able to join the meetings. I did a quick meeting last Thursday and did some Google meeting breakout rooms with my staff, but that's not something that's really fluid yet. So we're working really hard to get our ed techs into those Google meetings as well.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. And for special ed, the consistency is really important. And so that is an ongoing challenge to make sure that we're consistent across all of the buildings. There were still some questions, some things that we'll have to respond to, such as the possibility of having maybe more pre-recorded sessions. That would help address the concern that Karen just shared, that you have some families due to their work schedule, they're not able to participate, or their child is not able to participate in the live instruction. So if we were able to pre-record, it would make it easier for families to access that at a time that was more convenient for them. Um, let's see. And that also ties into the next one. We also had then transportation and food service. That was certainly a challenge. I think it's getting a little bit better. Gabe, are you still there? Can you speak to the delivery of food?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, it was a bit of a challenge, but we are. I would say after today we are mastering it. Absolutely. Originally, when we had kind of looked at everything, we thought we would be able to just pair the drivers up and do 2 combined runs. One driver would help deliver the food, one driver would drive. But with the number of meals that we're delivering and having to take the time to stop, we call ahead, try to make contact to the parents. If we can't, we're at least trying to. If the house is right close to the road, we'll go up, we'll knock on the door to see if somebody's there. So we're taking our time to make sure that these children are getting their food that they need. I'm not sure the exact number, but I believe it's roughly 550 lunches, 550 breakfasts. So it's a really large number that we're delivering. So it takes quite a while to do, but the time frame is shortening, and we're mastering it. I do have to a huge shout out to all the ed techs across the district that are helping us. They have come to our rescue and helped us do the meal deliveries and also do the packets that we've been pushing out. So they've been a great help. Trying to get all the same information to the drivers, to the kitchen's nutritional department, and everyone having the same information is definitely key to all of this to make it happen. So we are doing better. The packets also, delivering packets, we've been doing those in the mornings. So by the time we're done delivering packets, we shift right over to a lunch delivery at 11 o'clock. So it's been going well.
Thank you. Some things that we will have to think about in the future if we are in red, and that is providing a different message to families about drop off of the food. We are finding that a lot of times when food is being dropped off, there's no one present. So maybe we'll talk about the possibility of leaving a zippered tote, a box, a cooler at the doorstep at the end of the driveway so that there is a place for our staff to drop off the food. And also concerns, we've had concerns about staff safety. Actually had a dog go after one of our staff members, is my understanding. That person is fine and safe. But if we continue to operate in red, we will probably be putting out a notice asking families to make sure that any of their pets that are outside are tied up, or that they keep them in during the period of time in which we're going to be delivering food, to make sure that all of our staff remain safe. I'm going to stop showing this if that's all right. And I would ask if there are any other administrators who would like to add a comment.
I would, Pat, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
I think we've talked about this roundabout and we've done this, but I just want everybody to understand how hard our teachers are working. They are going so far above and beyond anything we've ever expected of them. The hours they're putting in, the time that they're putting in, the care that they're putting in. We've had conversations about, they're like, well, how do we do this? I'm like, well, just do the best you can. And I said, well, we really want to do what's really best for our students. So I just want everybody to really understand how hard the classroom teachers and all of our teachers are working. They are just, they feel so much for their kids and for their families, and they're reaching out individually to families, and they're trying to, make contact with all of them. So I just want everybody to understand how hard they are working, and a huge thank you to all of our teachers.
Vicki, thank you for sharing that. That is such an important message. Even though our schedule is different, it doesn't mean that our staff is not working. They are working harder than they've ever worked. And, they're also dealing with children, their own children at home. They're trying to provide them instruction. They're also worried about COVID and being exposed, and some of them are being quarantined and they're still trying to work full time. So the stress that they're under is just immense. And so people are tired, they're exhausted, they continue to give their all, but we are absolutely seeing the stress. And Vicki, I would also add, it's not just the teachers, the ed techs, the bus drivers, food service, it's our administrators as well. I want to make sure that I recognize how hard all of our administrators are working. You know, they're emailing back and reaching out at 9 o'clock at night. They're not stopping. They're working on weekends, and we are at a place at some point where everyone needs a little bit of a break. You know, our staff, many of our staff members did not get any type of break over the summer, and I can just see it. I can see how tired everyone is. So I just want to make sure that I put it out there and make sure that everyone receives the recognition about how hard this is. And it is hard. It is hard on families, and it is hard on the staff. Every staff member here at MSAD11. I'm seeing a lot of notes. I'm going to kind of shift, sorry. I'm seeing a lot of notes on the chat that I couldn't see when I am displaying my document. I can't see anyone. I can't see anything. So I apologize. Nicole made a comment that her middle schooler participated today and it went really well. That she liked the Google Classroom and that overall it went well. Jim Lothridge asked, can Terry speak to the 2 schools on our network and the problems? Terry, are you right there?
Hi there. I am right here and I can speak to that. The 2 schools being on our network, what's happening is we're all on the Wi-Fi and a lot of us have older laptops. And so not only are we taxing the Wi-Fi, we're also taxing the older laptops. So the goal of getting the laptops, the newer laptops, is we'll have more capable machines. And the goal of wiring everything is our devices that we use to connect to the projectors will be wired, and our laptops that teachers are using will be wired. And so the connections will be a lot faster and more capable of carrying more traffic.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm also monitoring some messages that are coming in. So
I'm doing the same thing.
Okay.
Could I follow up on that question?
Sure.
Yes.
Terry, with the elementary schools, I know we're talking about the 2 high schools being rewired. The elementary schools, I have my granddaughter with us, and she's been on the fantastic. The staff is doing great, but we lost connectivity here 3 times this morning. We just dropped off. I don't know if it was my system or the school system. Is there any way to find out, or do we call somebody, or what would you suggest?
I would really like the next time you go into one of the Google Meets with her, let me know and I'll go in there and take a look.
Thank you. Tomorrow I will talk to you.
Sounds great.
All right, thanks a lot.
I'd like to also speak to what Vicki said, and I think as board members, we're not participating in the classroom, so we don't know just how hard it is. And that oftentimes when you have a job and there's a shift in how you do your job, you get trained and you get lots of professional development so that you're super ready for it. And we didn't have that opportunity. So it's not only that it's hard, it's that it's different. And different is not easy. Different is just that. It is different and imposed upon you. And I want to be very grateful. I am very grateful to our staff for being willing to adapt and to pivot, to continue to try and do it better every day, to work with all the little snags that show up with the connectivity, from the connectivity to daycare issues, to all the things that I know our teachers are doing, and being able to see those happy faces, and you just work off the energy. Pat and I had a meeting with one of our administrators, and we hadn't been in the same room together since this all began 8 months ago. And as soon as the administrator walked in the room and sat down, and we could feel the energy, it was palpable, and everything changed, and it was okay. It's going to be okay. And it's different when you're just doing everything this way. It's even though it's multidimensional, it's just different. So I want to really recognize and appreciate our staff for all of their hard work. You guys are, you're rock stars, and you're heroes. And we are very, very lucky to have you, and grateful. Alyssa. Yeah, Alyssa wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you. Becky, I was going to come at it from the classroom because I have 2 kids, and as Nicole said, a middle schooler and a kindergartner. And just wanted to reinforce, I was listening, to the teacher today with such patience, explained to my kindergartner how to scroll down and hit the mute and hit the unmute, and it just went really well. And then the food delivery, giving those folks some props. It sort of brightens my kids' day when they hear the bus coming, because they weren't taking the bus. So to have the bus pull up and then see their ed tech was pretty amazing. So I think, to Pat and Becky's point, we did this all in 2 days, so everyone should be pretty impressed with themselves. We shifted pretty quickly here, and that's pretty amazing. We have challenges, obviously, but I just give you all credit and appreciate the smiles you put on my kids' faces. So thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Angela, you had a comment that you wanted to make?
Oh, I just want to make sure that there's been a lot of wonderful commentary about our coaches and our staff, and I just want to make sure that the board recognizes that we really valued those extra days in August that you were able to support for us. We've had more professional development than we've ever had in this district to this point. We probably, the number of hours our teaching staff, our ed tech staff have received in professional development at this point in the year supersedes really you get to do it until you get to take what you learned and put it into practice. It doesn't always like theory and application are 2 very different things. And so I'm just so proud of our staff for being able to take the theory and the practice that we put into place early, and then grapple with it in a really quick turnaround. And then what we've noticed is some staff really rising up and supporting their peers so effectively. And that was referenced a little bit earlier, but it's because they've had, because you afforded them a little bit of time early, and because they're so committed to their learners, that they were certain they were going to go live and do what's right for kids. And I want to commend them for that. And I just want to make sure that I recognize the support you've offered also in providing the time for professional learning through our Wednesdays and our August days that we haven't always had in the past.
Thank you, Angela. Becky, the board has received a couple emails specific to this conversation. Now, I know that the agenda says that we will get back to public comment at the end of the meeting, but if we were in public session, we would probably read or allow these individuals to share thoughts with the full board. So would you mind if I read those 2 emails?
No,
No,
I would not. I've just been sitting here reading them myself.
Okay, so we have 2. One is from Angie Moreland. And she says, good evening. My name is Angie Moreland, and I am a parent of 4 children, 3 of which are school age and 1 who is 3 weeks old. Congratulations, Angie. That's fantastic. I am writing tonight to express my concern with how difficult the RED module is for our family. For starters, we do not have a stable internet connection that allows us to connect a single device to live instruction or internet connection through satellite. Therefore, there is a significant delay or lag in the video and audio. To that end, we cannot have more than 1 device connected to it at a time. We have solved this problem by borrowing one of the hotspots from the district. This has been a great solution when my senior has had live instruction while my 6th and 5th graders have had Google Classroom instruction. Today, RED module with all 3 of them on Google Meets from 7:30 until 2 p.m. was difficult. Finding a location in their house that is private, quiet, and free of distractions, that is also in range of the hotspot is near impossible. While I cannot speak for other families with multiple children in various grades, I am sure I'm not alone in our frustration that one point or another, all of the children were frustrated, distracted, and in tears over how hard it was to concentrate with other unavoidable distractions. Our hardest classes were live band instruction and physical education, as those classes did not yield to headphones and hushed speaking tones. I do want to express my deepest gratitude to Superintendent Pat Hopkins and the principals at the high school, middle school, Pittston Randolph Consolidated Schools for keeping our children, our students healthy and safe. I know making the decision to close schools, operate in red, yellow, or green modes is difficult and not taken lightly. I do ask that when making a decision on which mode is appropriate for the schools, to please keep in mind families like mine that have multiple children in multiple schools. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Angie, for sending that. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts. We also have heard from Ashley Healy. Hello, my name is Ashley Healy, and my daughter is a 4th grader at Riverview. My concerns and questions are related to the RED model. I always knew and understood the importance of the different models, and I know the safety and health of our students and staff is of utmost importance. However, my concern is with my child's ability to participate in the long, daily live instruction required. My daughter's teacher has been wonderful, but I know we are not the only family struggling with this. Daycare is not able to accommodate live learning, and we have to work. I feel like my child is missing out on her education because we are unable to rework our lives and stay home with her to accommodate these long daily live learning sessions. With the yellow model, there was flexibility and direction for the assignments being posted. With the red model, if my child misses the live instruction, she does not have the resources or information taught in class to understand the materials or assignments. So my question is, do you have a plan B for RED model to accommodate families who are not able to make these long live sessions work for them? And what's the impact to a child's attendance if they are unable to be present during each day's live sessions? Thank you for your time. Not to put anyone on the spot, Angela or Vicky, are you able to respond to her question about an alternative if her child can't participate in the live instruction due to some family restrictions?
So, and Vicki, you know your context better than I do. I can speak to the alternate plan piece. Given that this is our first time that we've launched live instruction for universally at the K-5 level, we will be gathering, or we have been gathering feedback from families informally. The principals have done a beautiful job with that, and they are also gathering feedback from their staff through conversations, reflections, and staff meetings. We will be surveying our staff Friday afternoon to gain some feedback and understand what worked and didn't. And then from that experience, well, we're not sure what the plan is for Monday yet, but in the near future, if an adjustment should be made to better meet the needs of our community internally at the school level and externally at the family level, we will certainly try to do that and communicate that effectively with advance notice. In terms of attendance, Vicki, do you want to take that one on, or do you want me to try to speak to that?
No, I can take it on because I've had some conversations with my teachers around attendance. So we do understand there are some families that cannot log in during the day. So what we've talked about as a staff is if there's a family that can't log in during the day, but they're able to do some of the work at night, or they're at least reaching out to the teacher to let them know where the difficulties are, we're not we're marking the student present if they're trying to get their work done and they're communicating with the teacher. A lot of the teachers, and I can't speak directly to this one, but they are working on either providing a mini lesson where it's pre-recorded, or they're recording their actual, just their lesson part, so it's available later. And again, today was day one. We're just really trying to figure that all out, but that is probably one of the major concerns the teachers have, is how are they going to reach those kiddos that, due to no fault of the child, it's just the situation that we're in, they may not be able to access the live learning. So we're still working on figuring that out, but what's key is communication with the teacher. Please communicate with the teacher if there are issues. And again, if the kiddo is doing their best to meet the lessons, we're not having attendance be against them.
Thank you. All right, why don't I just read a couple more comments, and then I will bring up the what if we were to go to green. Okay, what hurdles do we need to overcome? So we have something called Top Chat. To be honest, I don't even know what Top Chat is, but Martha's out here, my administrative assistant, and she is keeping track of it and pulling it all together for me. So here's a bunch of comments. Jen Boudreau, Gwen is an excellent choice. Congratulations. Deb Butterfield, congratulations, Gwen. Jennifer Boudreau, sending a shout out to our nurses. Jane Staples, the nurses are doing an amazing job. Stephanie Dixon, most students that I spoke to said that they like this very much. That is a middle school teacher. They said they like it a lot better than the current yellow plan at the middle school. So they're liking the live streaming. Becky Seberg, my son is in the 6th grade. He liked the live stream much better than the yellow instruction they had been doing. And from Bethany Richmond, having both a high schooler and a 4th grader at home, I say a huge thank you to our teachers and support staff. So those are the comments that I have received so far. All right, so with that, why don't we, if I can bring up green, I will do that and go through so you can see if we are to shift to green, what that would look like. Okay, so starting with the high school, I'm trying to use a similar model to what I used for red, ensuring the social distancing with the 551 students that we would have in the building, or if all of the students who are currently 100% remote, if they were also to go back into the school if we were green, that would give us 650 students. That would definitely be a challenge. I also noted that we have 29 students who are high school students who are being homeschooled. Passing in the hallway is an issue, and providing lunches within the 50-person space restriction on top of the 6-foot distancing. You know, please visualize the cafeteria at the high school. I'm going to ask you to do the same when we get to the middle school, that they are in the center of hallways. There are students passing from classes, staff members passing from classes. And based upon the new restrictions from the governor, we are limited to 50 individuals in a particular space. So while we're trying to feed students while maintaining the 6-foot distancing, we also have to stay within the 50-person restriction. So that means that while we're actually feeding students, we have to feed fewer than 50 at a time, because we have to allow for the fact that there will be people in the hallway going back and forth at the same time. Now, we also have staff members who are going to be supervising. So in addition to feeding X number of students, we also need to provide some additional, dedicate some of the available of the 50 persons. Sorry, I'm losing track of what I wanted to say. Let me start that over. So if we're going to keep to the 50-person cap, we have to take into consideration the number of students who are going to be fed, the number of staff members who are going to be supervising those students who are eating, and people in the hallway. So when you're trying to feed 551 students or 650 students, that is a lot to do in a very limited space. Chad has been very creative. If you go into the high school, you will see that there are benches located in the hallways, and those benches were built by he and Nate for the purpose of giving students the ability to eat in the hallway. We have students that are eating outside, but as winter nears, we're not going to be able to do that any longer. We also have students eating in the little theater up on stage, but we really are limited. So we can make it, it will be really tough at the high school to be able to move to green because of that. We are talking, however, about the possibility of bringing back all students with IEPs or 504 plans, that we could allow them back in. But if we have those students in the building, then we would most likely want them to attend classes in both cohort A and with cohort B students. So that means that they would be intermingling between cohorts. Now, with the situation that we just encountered, having a separate cohort A and a separate cohort B was incredibly beneficial to us. If all of our students had been intermingled and we didn't have the separate cohorts, we would have been looking at a much larger number of students who would have had to have been quarantined. Chad, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well. And probably the biggest challenge is lunches, partly because of where our cafeteria is located. In order to get from our T wing, where our math and science classes are, over to either A wing or C wing, we've got to go through the cafeteria. So that presents challenges with 3 lunches. We did increase our lunches from 2 to 3 to reduce numbers in the cafeteria. And our outside spaces are going to become much more limited as winter hits and snow is on the ground and so forth. So I think we can do it given the current conditions with yellow. We've got enough space with the numbers of kids that we have in each lunch. But going green would be really mission impossible unless we, I honestly don't know. I think it's really mission impossible.
650 students are a lot of students to be passing each other in the hallway as well, and still maintaining the 6-foot distancing requirement. So
They have like,
yeah,
And not touching each other. That's
correct.
I mean, you know, it's just, it's an impossible thing to ask.
Well, and so moving down to the middle school, if we look at the fact that they would have 339 students if they were all together, or 417 if you include all of those who are currently fully remote, and there are currently 45 students who are being homeschooled in grades 6 through 8. The cafeteria situation is very similar to what was just described at the high school, but they also, over at the middle school, have narrow hallways, especially in the 6th grade wing. It's especially narrow. And if you're saying high school students can't stop periodically punching each other and touching each other. It's
Right.
even worse at the middle school.
Right.
So that is going to be really tough to be able to have all of the students at the middle school in person, which is partially why, again, we're really trying to push to have the middle school begin the synchronous learning. John, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right with the kids. They can't keep their hands from, touching and pushing, and so that's one of the challenges. Another challenge is right now we have them carrying backpacks around the building with their stuff because the lockers are so close to each other, pushing kids out to gather stuff from lockers. And if we were agreeing, now you're talking anywhere from the high 300s to low 400 amount of kids in the building. Where are they putting that stuff? I've always, since we started this, looked at it with the, lens of safety. And I think in yellow, kids are being able to engage their friends, but there's not so many kids in the building that we can't do things like keeping them physically distant, keeping them, just keeping them safe in general. And I think with the live streaming or the synchronous learning, we've gotten some pretty good feedback from staff. I've been getting a few emails today. And some parents have contacted me saying the kids really enjoyed it today. And I think that was the missing link. I think that is the missing link for us to keep track of our kids, support them in their learning, instead of having them home 3 days trying to, I don't want to say fend for themselves, but working hard to keep up with their work. If we were teaching synchronously, they'd have the teachers every day, whether they're in the building or out.
Great, thank you. So then shifting to elementary. So elementary, I also included in here the numbers so that you could see at LER, we would have 211 students or 235 if all of the students who are currently remote came back into the building. At Riverview, it would be 143 or 171. Pittston Randolph would be 167 or 205. Helen Thompson would be 215 or 259. The elementary schools, we have around 94 students who are currently being homeschooled. So as the elementary administrators shared at an administrative meeting, certainly they are in a position where they could most likely go to green, but it would be tight. We have some class sizes where we have students of around 20, 21. Once you get over to Helen Thompson, we have in grades 4, 5, we have some class sizes that are around 24, 25. So it would not work with those class sizes to bring everyone back. It would potentially require the addition of another teacher. And we would have to maybe create like a 4-5 over at Helen Thompson. But we have some other class sizes that would be pretty tight. Over at LER, class sizes are around 18, I believe it is, for kindergarten and first grade. And in this particular model, we would need to bring desks into the classrooms, and students would need to stay at their desks. So we would not have the quality of learning for our younger students that we currently have. There wouldn't be center time. There wouldn't be circles. There wouldn't be an opportunity for students to get on the floor and do their morning meetings, at their rug. It would be really tough. The teachers would have to stay further away from their students. The students would have to be further away from the board to see the whole instruction. There are definitely some issues with storage for some of the younger students. We would need to figure that out. Currently we have cubbies. And in the past, we've had students share some of the cubbies. If you think about preschool, we historically have had 2 separate groups a group of students in the morning, group of students in the afternoon. There's sharing of cubbies. That would not necessarily be able to occur. If we were in green, there would be some additional cleaning that would have to take place, and I'm not sure if we could accommodate that. We also have a lot of ed tech support, and if we have all of our students in, and again, it's possible, and we're not saying that it can't happen pre-K through 5, but certainly we would have to take a closer look at whether our ed techs would be able to be in the room. It would be a bit more of a challenge given our space limitations. There's also concern about snack in the classroom. Because you can't take your mask off unless you are 6 feet apart, you would not be able to have snacks in the classroom. Students would absolutely have to go outside. They would have to go in the gym. They would have to go some other place. Where in the spring and the fall it might work. It's just more difficult in the winter when it's really cold. The additional cleaning, we've already talked about that. Pittston, they would need to configure lunch. One of the challenges with Pittston that our other elementary schools do not have is Pittston has one common space for the cafeteria and the gymnasium. So the feeding of the students really needs to happen in only one space. Christina has looked at how she could accommodate additional students, and she has identified an overflow lunch space that she could use. But it's definitely tighter over at Pittston than over at some of the other elementary schools. Also, the parent drop off and pick up. For those of you who've been to the Pittston Randolph School, you know it's kind of tight. And so she's talking about the need to add an additional wave so that we could get parents in and out while not interfering necessarily with our buses. And we also may need to add another grade 3 teacher. Again, the whole class size issue that I already mentioned at HT could impact the Pittston Randolph School as well. Here is the HT issue that I've already identified. And over at LER, Karen notes a very similar concern with parent pickup and drop off. She already has a number of parents who are driving their children to school as we've asked, and there is quite a little bit of a backup right now. So if all the students were in school together, that design would need to be looked at and potentially reconfigured. Any of the elementary administrators have anything to add to this? I can't see you and I can't see faces. I can only see what I'm projecting, so I'm not hearing anything. So I'm guessing no one has a comment to make. Is that?
Sorry, Pat, I was trying to find my mute button. Yeah, I think you did a really good job really summarizing the challenges. We would love to have, and when I started talking to the staff about this, they were very excited to think that we could have all of the kids back. I think the social distancing is the toughest part. Like if we didn't have to be 6 feet apart, 3 feet apart, it would be back to wearing masks and doing our day. But we were talking about how we've worked so hard to get away from the years of deaths in a row and everybody staying in their own place to moving to more social learning and group dynamics where they're kind of learning from each other in a more collaborative way. We would have to move away from that with that many. Right now, it's been nice that teachers are able to do a lot of one-on-one with their kids. They're doing a lot of small groups. Kids are still able to do the centers in the yellow mode. They all have their own supplies, but as they take turns, they all roll their own dice and they do some of the center activities. So that's been really nice happening. There are certainly pros to all the models and there are certainly cons. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm a little bit confused why we would be talking about the green mode right now where Augusta is now considered a hotspot for the state of Maine. The cases are really increasing daily. In my personal opinion, I don't even see green in this year. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm usually an optimistic, but it's really hitting Maine hard now.
It's a great question, Teresa. We began having this conversation as an administrative team before we had our own little outbreak here in MSAD11. But also at the beginning of the school year, when we presented the models that were available and we requested that we begin the year in yellow, we made a commitment that we would come back and speak with the board about going to green and discuss the challenges, the pros and cons, and whether it could happen after we had an opportunity to function for a while in yellow. And that's what we're doing. The timing of it appears odd. I understand that, but we're just following through on the commitment that we made at the beginning of the school year. I fully understand that the board may not feel comfortable in moving forward with green, but still feel that you need to understand what the barriers are and what we can do should the board either now or at some other point in the school year determine that it would like us to operate in the green. Does that help, Teresa?
And Pat, we have been talking about this, and thank you for all the work on this. This is exactly what I was hoping that you would pull together to show us to promote conversation.
Can I add one more thing, and then I will stop displaying this,
sure.
and you could ask your question. The final thing that I wanted to show actually has to do with transportation. And so with transportation, we've been following the recommendations that places one student in each seat so that we are, again, ensuring the 3 to 6 foot distancing. If we were to go in green, we would need to have 2 students per seat in order to transport them to the students. In order to do that, our transportation department would need to completely redesign all of our bus routes and switch us to a single cohort model. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. The recommendations from the Department of Education, from the CDC, that we have just the 1 student per seat is just that, a recommendation. And they have said that never should transportation be the only reason that prevents you from going to green. But I just wanted to be very clear as to what that would mean for our buses, that we would have to increase the number of students that are allowed on each bus. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to stop presenting. There we go. I can see your faces again.
Yay. So yeah, this is a really an important conversation that we said we would have. And we talked about having this conversation before we knew where we would be today. And here we are. I think with the change of, I would personally feel comfortable being in green if it was March or April, because we could move in and out, indoors and outdoors, and we could use tents and things like that. But now that we're moving inside, it's really, things are changing really quickly. And I don't have an answer. I think I think green would be difficult, nearly impossible right now. Other board members, I encourage you to weigh in.
Just wondering, great work on the green aspect and trying to figure that out. But I'm wondering if maybe this green option is a little too complex. At some point in time, I truly believe that we can get back to the way it was before all this started. So I'm wondering if changing the thought process on the green option as it was the way it was before. Just throwing that out there as just thinking out loud.
Meaning that we just sent everybody back to school and just.
Yes, I mean that's the ultimate goal, and I understand it's not going to happen next week and whatnot. But with the Governor Mills came out with some more regulations today. It looks like we're being pushed back to another shutdown. With the 6 feet distance, unfortunately, our schools aren't big enough with the amount of students that we have to be able to coincide with that. So yellow seems to be a good option for a pandemic type situation where there's a lot of restrictions. Without investing millions of dollars to build school systems that we need, the size of the schools that we need to be able to coincide with this, 6 foot distance. Why not change the way we look at as green option as we go back to school in a normal mode where kids can play, no social distancing, we don't have to worry about it, because it looks like it's going to cost a lot more money hiring new teachers to be able to do the extra classrooms, temporary classrooms, if that's on the table. I'm just looking at it as, red is what we're in now. It's, the safest mode where nobody's in contact with each other. Yellow, there's a little bit of contact. We're a little bit more cautious in that phase. And then green mode is we're back to normal. And that's something that we can work towards as this whole pandemic continues on. And we don't have to worry about hiring people. How do we do the distancing and stuff like that? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, right now, Patrick, we would not be able to return to normal in green and still abide by the regulations put forth by the Department of Education and the CDC. And if we chose, or if you chose as a school board to ignore those regulations and just send students back so that we operated like we used to operate, then that would impact our funding.
That's not the point that I'm trying to make. I'm not saying ignore it. I'm saying just change the way that we're looking at the green mode. We're red, we're very cautious. We're going to, protect all the kids, all the staff members, so everybody stays home. Yellow, we're a little bit more cautious. We'll follow through with, the social distancing, the smaller classrooms, the cohorts. Green would be us saying everything's back to normal. We're going back to school the way it was before. There's no mandates or, Governor Mills has lifted all the restrictions and stuff like that. We're back to normal is what I'm saying. Just change that way of thinking for the red, yellow, green. I am not by any means saying let's ignore the regulations and stuff like that, because I understand it affects the funding. I'm just saying.
I hear what you're saying, Patrick. I think of the green, yellow, red as when we're in this pandemic, and what you're saying is the normal, right? I almost think of that as like green A and this is green B, right? For lack of a better way, right? Like we still have to have, I think, the 3 modes in order to fulfill what we need to do, to Pat's point, right? For the guidelines, because that's sort of what the state has given us. But I appreciate what you're saying.
I just don't think that there's a way that we can feasibly have our schools in a green mode with the facilities that we have. So I'm just saying, let's just change that green mode, that everything's back to normal, and we just bounce between. I don't really want to bounce between the two, but use red or use yellow depending on the situation that's going on. Green is everything's back to normal. Let's get back to life.
I gotcha. Thank you, Patrick.
Can I say something real quick? I think that I think we need to stay in yellow as long as we can, whenever we can. I mean, I have a 4th grader and a senior, and I think it's important. I think the social aspect of school is just as important as academics, and and I think we need to stay there as much as we can. I understand that everybody's concerned about the spread, but I just think that we need to stay in yellow as much as we can.
Thank you. Matthew Lillibridge, you had a comment? Did you disappear?
No, he's there, but I think he's muted. We can't hear
Sorry.
you, Matthew. There you go.
Sorry. No, I was gonna agree with what Matt said. I've also got a fourth grader, and I'd already emailed Pat about the issues we've been going through, just because he's an only child and stuff like that. And I agree that yellow, as close as we possibly can, is the way to go. But I'm cynical and people doing the right thing, so I think between now and probably February, it's going to be hit or miss with the holiday get-togethers and all that other stuff. But and I'm not saying anything that most people I'm sure on the board agree with, that the kids are better off in school than at home. In school instruction and being with their friends, and having teachers talk to them one-on-one versus through the computer. But yeah, I don't see us going to green till probably spring. But every effort we can make to get the kids in at least 2 days a week. And I know some of the feedback from the different townspeople that we've been seeing with the group emails is it's tough to go back and forth. But I mean, I know everyone's doing their best to try to keep it that way. And as much as we can get them in school with their peers, I would just wholly support that action. And I know everyone's doing that. I'm just caveating to what Matt said.
Thank you. Quentin, you had something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to kind of continue on what Matt Marshall was saying. As like a student being in red, while I know that basically it's like you're trying to protect us and keep us healthy, and of course I appreciate that, and I know that going green right now is like it basically impossible. But at least to go into yellow and give students at least some time in the building and time to see friends. I just know, at least personally, being in red has been super hard for me, and I'm sure a lot of other students feel that way. It's really difficult to not be able to see any of your friends in person, or even see your teachers in person. I miss with being in red, I miss seeing my teachers, and I miss walking around the halls. And I never thought that I would be in a position where I miss being in school, and I miss waking up to drive to school, because this being in red and the challenging times we've been in have really showed me how much I love being in school, and how much I love being a part of the community, and being with my teachers and friends. So if there's any way to get us back into yellow as soon as possible, I think that would be ideal. So yeah, that was it.
Thank you, Q. Matt, after Veronica and Jim, they're in the chat box. So you're number 3. So Veronica?
I mean, listening to parents on both sides, they're really concerned about the swapping back and forth. And then the parents that we kind of heard from tonight about how nearly impossible it is to help multiple children at home. My question is, Pat, if, say, tomorrow you choose to put schools back into yellow, can parents at that point choose to keep their children home and go remote, or do they have to come back if they've been at school in the cohort?
Well, ultimately, parents get to make that choice. However, as I say that, keep in mind that we only have a limited number of staff members who are already teaching remote, and we are at capacity in some regards. So it would not be easy or possible in some ways for us to expand extensively the number of students who are accessing our remote program solely. Angela, can you respond to that any further?
Interestingly, the timing here is that the middle school is closing out their quarter right now, and we did say that transitions could happen at the quarter break for the middle school. So we've already sent a survey out to families asking for their readiness to return. It actually did go out this week even though we were in red, and we did say that we wouldn't enact the change until we actually revisited yellow. And we do have some movement indicated, but it seems to be about the same number of students who are returning or anticipating a return, and the same number of students who are opting back for cohort C. So that is good for us in terms of staffing. The elementary schools, their transition is at the trimester break, which happens the Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It starts the second trimester, so it's only a couple weeks away. So if families, as Pat said, families always need to make the best decision for their own family. And if we move to yellow starting Monday and families are really terribly uncomfortable with that, we're going to do our best to support them in learning remotely, but they won't have we don't have the capability of live streaming or providing remote concurrent instruction, and then work to try to secure a commitment from all of our families about whether or not they would like to change in the next few weeks, so that we can plan for it and consider our staffing for the K-5 space. And then high school is a semester break, so that would need to have parents would need to have a conversation with Chad or Jackie or Jared to really help us understand the impact on our system if they were to not return to the building.
Thank you. I worry about those families that just don't have the capability to be at home, not go to work, and that inequity that, I mean, we see it at my school too. And I just want to make sure those families, if we can get their kids in school, like Matt said, the yellow model right now is our best option. And it's just so important that those families have that opportunity because they can't afford the opportunity of keeping their children at home and educating them.
Thank you, Veronica. Jim, you had something? And then Matt.
Yes. Going back to one of the letters that we received, one of the emails regarding their inability to use a single hotspot for the 3 students in their household. Is there a reason we couldn't give them a second or third hotspot that would accommodate, because of 3 different students with 3 different, one elementary, one middle school, and one high schooler? Or are these hotspots supposed to be capable of handling, as I understood it, multiple units or multiple devices, and yet they're having a problem? And I know if this, and the other option, the other thing I'm thinking about is there any way we can accommodate some of these folks that cannot miss their work? They'll either lose their job or they may lose their apartment or their house if they can't get to work. Could we offer some kind of an evening, or as I know you were mentioning, not live stream, but recorded units that they could do later? Can we think out of the box a little bit and see if we couldn't come up with something that will help these folks? I don't have an answer. It's just a lot of question there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Terry, can you respond to the hotspot question?
Sure. The hotspots are limited. We don't have an unlimited amount of them. And when we went back to the remote learning, there were a ton of people that started asking for them. Up to 10 people can connect to each hotspot. But when you try to do a video conference on them, it's going to be very hard. Sometimes even one video conference can be hard. That we had 2 families report major problems. I did call the DOE and US Cellular, and we found out that they had limited the hotspots. So that has been taken care of. And so that was a technical issue that got solved yesterday. So I think moving forward, we should see if it's still a problem. We do have Wi-Fi access in all of our buildings, which is not easy for people to drive. And so that would be something we could talk about. But when you start talking about 3 or 4 hotspots per building, I mean, per family, does it make more sense to try to get an internet connection? So those are conversations we would need to have.
And Jim, as I previously stated, the elementary administration, they are already engaged in conversations about the ability to record and tape lessons that teachers are engaging in order to give the flexibility to the families who are not able to have their child participate in live instruction. So we are doing that work behind the scenes to support those families.
Even trying to schedule classes might work.
Do we have any idea of a time frame for this recording and for later consumption? Have you got any idea? Are we looking at maybe 2 weeks, a month? What's your thinking on that?
Most of the recordings are done in real time, Mr. Lothridge, and are posted right to their site later that day for students, because they're short-term recordings. They're not the full class. They're not allowed to record if there's ongoing discussion and dialogue across student groups in case there's any shared personally identifiable information, but they can record some direct instruction or specific components of instruction that might help students access the assignment later. And so it should be pretty timely. After a recording is completed, it's generated and sent to the teacher's email account, and then it would need to be uploaded to either Google Classroom or embedded inside Seesaw for future access. At this point, because this is all so brand new, we weren't sure how many students would be able to participate live or not. We did not mandate official recordings of every period of instruction, but we will review that this week as we understand attendance in these live sessions. So not every teacher will have this posted this week. And we'll learn from the experience and we'll adjust after these 2 days. And we won't hold students to something that's not reasonable to expect if they have extenuating circumstances.
I'm in no way recommending that we stay on red. I would much rather see us go back to yellow. I've watched my granddaughter. She's been staying here while my grandson is over at his house, and they miss being in school. It's a much better situation, even if it's only 2 days a week. So, but I just want to see if we have to go red. I don't want anybody getting left behind if there's anything we can do to accommodate them. So thank you.
Thank you. Matthew?
So I have 2 kids in the district, and I think that being at yellow is extremely important. And I think that as parents, and I'm not implying that other parents don't care about their kids, but I think that we all have some responsibility at this point to make sure that our kids are doing the right thing and they're not socially gathering at family functions where you might have somebody that it might be compromised or might have COVID complications or anything else. I just think that it's important for us to make sure that our kids are the priority and that we are doing the right thing. I'm not saying that I'm a big mask guy. I guess I am. I wear them because I care about what other people, I care about other people, but and their safety and how they think and how they feel. But I think it's important for parents to take some responsibility and make sure that their kids are doing the right thing and that they are being safe and they don't get exposed, and it affects the entire district, as we've seen. So,
Thank you.
So based on this conversation, could I offer something, Becky?
Yes.
It is my recommendation, and I have not publicized this since we're having tonight's meeting, and I really wanted to make sure that the board had a voice in all of this. But given that we have 28 high school staff members who will be out of quarantine as of tomorrow, we'll have 128 high school students out of quarantine. I am feeling as if we can run the district starting on Monday in yellow. We will need to hire some substitutes because we still have some staff members who are in quarantine. But again, and Matt, you said it very well. A lot of the situation that we're dealing with, it is not because of the transmission of COVID in our schools. Not a single person in our school has tested positive for COVID because of transmission in the schools. That has not happened. It is all community based. And so the teachers, the staff, and all of the students are doing exactly what they need to. They're following the rules. They're wearing their masks. They're keeping their social distance, they're washing their hands, they're doing the right things. So as of right now, I feel comfortable in recommending that we return in yellow on Monday. With that, I can't promise that we won't go to red again, depending on what happens within our community, but I hope not. Maintaining the two separate cohorts benefited us this past time, as I tried to highlight. We were able to keep a number of students in school for a longer period of time because we had the separate cohorts. So I am in support of the yellow mode for the time being. I think given especially us going into the holiday season and the fact that it is natural for staff, students, family members to potentially get together with family members. The risk of COVID, people testing positive for COVID is certainly in existence. And we may see additional uptakes throughout the holiday season. But I would like to try going back to yellow and stay in yellow as long as we possibly can. Students, as Quentin said, and I think Quentin, you were very well spoken, very articulate about it. I think that there are a lot of mental health issues occurring with our students. They need to be in the buildings as much as possible. They need that socialization. Our students are isolated, and we need, even if it's only for a week or two and we end up going back to red, and I understand how hard that is for families, but our students need to be in the building and in school with their teachers and with their friends, receiving their instruction as much as possible, as much as we can. Every day counts. So unless you are all opposed, I would definitely recommend that as of Monday, we return to yellow. I see some thumbs up. Are there other thumbs up? Great, I see a lot of thumbs up. Is there anyone that opposes?
No, I was thinking maybe we should do a motion.
Okay.
Just so it's on the record that
I motion that we move into yellow on Monday.
I'll second that.
I second.
Second by Matthew. Pat, would you please read the roll?
Which Matthew?
Matthew Marshall.
Okay.
Hey, Becky.
Yes.
Before you guys go, Tony has a comment, and then I have
Oh, thank you. You're right. Thank you. Go ahead, Tony. So this is the conversation part. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would tend to lean a little more towards red to continue that. I do want to recognize that students learn better in person, or that's what I'm hearing. There's that piece. My concern is that we haven't had a case yet in the school. If one gets in, it's going to get hot real fast. And I'm not convinced we're out of that yet. So I'm concerned. I think there's, I like the point that we have not had a case in the school, and that's been because we're practicing that way. But I really want to exercise all due caution in entering that. I'd like to explore more like what Jim was saying around, let's think out of the box of what are the other connections we can make. We've been working on those. I know that one of the Boys and Girls Clubs has like a homeroom program for kids to come in on their remote days. So there's some of those connections, but I just really want to be mindful that the very connections that we're talking about, the socialization that we're talking about, is also the risk factor. And I just want to be really clear that the benefit of that socialization contains the risk within it. So that's my piece. I will support, we can go back to a vote after. I'll support the yellow, but I want to be really clear about that.
And can I just add for clarification, we have had individuals in our schools who have tested positive, right? They've been in our buildings. They just did not get COVID-19 because they were in our buildings. That's not where the transmission occurred. The transmission occurred outside of the buildings, okay? And in a meeting that I participated in last week that included the Deputy Commissioner of Education, he indicated to the area superintendents that not a single transmission of COVID has occurred in any school in the entire state of Maine. The transmissions are not happening in school, they're happening in our community.
We need to pause just for a moment, and Matthew Lillibridge, you'll be next, but by board policy, in order to go past 8:30, we need to agree to do that. So we need a motion and a second to go on past 8:30. And Veronica, you can't.
I'll move. Do we go past 8:30?
All right, and second by Tony. And conversation is, we'll try not to go long past 8:30. You guys are in charge of some of that. So Pat, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Becky Fless.
Yes.
Veronica Babcock.
Yes.
Nancy Fortier Brown.
Yes.
Teresa Garrett.
Yes.
Matthew Lillibridge.
Yes.
Jim Lothridge.
Yes.
Nicole Medor. Matthew Marshall.
Yes.
Patrick Saucier.
Yes.
Alyssa Tracy.
Yes.
John Umland. I'm sorry he's not here today. Tony Veet.
Yes.
Quentin Martin.
Yes.
Gwen Boldick Ignaziak.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Matthew Lillibridge, your turn.
Well, first of all, let me reassure Veronica, I'm not going to talk for 6 minutes. But one of the questions I had for Pat is, and you probably have no way of knowing this or whatever, is even if someone tests positive, doesn't necessarily mean that they are positive. And I'm not going to get into weeds or anything, just because if you look at the Colby's website, we've had 34 quote unquote positives, but we test them 2 consecutive days after the fact, and more than half have tested negative after the fact. So I'm not saying all of the cases. I'm glad that nothing's happened in the schools, but I don't necessarily can agree with the math/science of everyone who tests positive is truly indeed a positive. So, but under Maine CDC and national CDC policies, there's no such thing as a false positive. And I'm all about erring on the side of caution. And just to say with everybody else, I'm all about charging full steam ahead towards the yellow. But the one question I have is, if someone, Pat, in your shop can produce another email and you can't tell people what to do, and I'm with Matt with regards to wear a mask because it's the right thing to do for image, and to prove that you care about what goes on around you. So if there's going to be a formal announcement from the district either tomorrow or over the weekend or something like that, saying if you can impress upon the adults of the district to try to do the right thing and not congregate, more than we're supposed to, as dictated by the governor and CDC and science or whatever else. And again, I know we can't say anything, but if we can just say, if you want to keep your kids in school, let's try our best to do the right thing. That's what I'm just seeing. If we can, in what limited capacity we have, just reach out to everybody and say, if you want your kids in school, then let's try to all be a little bit less selfish. And obviously it'll be phrased differently, and do the right thing so all the kids can get back into school.
Bravo,
And
Matt.
we've been lucky in Maine, even with our surgery we got going right now, we've been fortunate. So that's what I'm trying to get at. If we can just do something like that from the district.
A letter will go out tomorrow. I want to make sure that families have the weekend to prepare to switch back to yellow. And so that letter has not been crafted yet, Matt. I will certainly keep that in mind and try to put something in to encourage people to continue to follow the CDC guidelines and practice safe social distancing.
I have I have a question for Quentin. Q, how busy are you?
Like regularly?
Yeah.
Quite busy.
I'm wondering if it would be possible. I don't have any idea how much time it would take, but if maybe you and Gwen could create a public service announcement in the form of a video that we could push out to the community in the district about how much you like being in school and how unfortunate it is when people don't operate in a way that we can. And would they please wear masks? Use your creativity. I have a feeling that Gwen is really creative just from sitting with her. I have a feeling that that's out there. So I'm wondering if that would be a possibility that you guys could create a PSA.
That's definitely something worth exploring.
So we could
I don't see why we couldn't do that.
So that we could watch our P's and Q's so that we could, get back to SCHOOL. Wouldn't that be nice? Would you be willing to work on that, Gwen? Something that's positive and uplifting and includes gymnastics or something.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Well, that's my suggestion. Or my wish, if you wouldn't mind. All right. Are we ready to, what do we need to do now?
I need to take the roll if we're ready to call the vote.
Are we ready? Do we have we have a motion, a second?
Yes.
It's creeping towards, the other side of 8:30.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Please call the roll.
All right. Becky Fless.
Yay.
Veronica Babcock.
Yay.
Nancy Fortier-Brown.
Yay.
Teresa Garrett.
Yay.
Matthew Lillybridge. Matthew Lillybridge.
Sorry, yay at 8:29.
Jim Lothridge.
Yay.
Nicole Madore.
Yay.
Matthew Marshall.
Yay.
Patrick Saucier.
Yay.
Lissa Tracy.
Yay.
Tony Veet. Tony Veet.
Where did he go?
He's right there. He's giving me the finger. This one.
Don't do that.
Get away.
Not
There he
the
is.
Tony.
It was the
Tony V. Yes? No? What's your vote? You're freezing up. How about a thumb?
yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
That was a yes.
There. Okay, great. Thank you. Quentin Martin.
Yay.
Gwen Bolduc Ignaziak.
Yay.
Great. It is unanimous. So starting Monday, we are returning to yellow. Yay.
This is living
Okay.
proof. This is living proof why we can't go more than 3 hours.
Yeah, we're all getting tired.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right, next. Rapid testing information.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure that you were all aware that the state of Maine is providing schools with the opportunity to provide rapid testing in our schools. And so it would be available for us to use with students and I believe with staff. And it could detect the COVID virus within the first 7 days of exposure in a symptomatic patient. So these are being distributed to schools free of charge. The primary purpose is, again, so if we have a student who's symptomatic, that we can hopefully detect that situation very early. Only the nurses would provide the testing. The nurses would be in full PPE gear. The nurses would be expected to contact the CDC and the primary care providers if we had a positive test result. Let's see. A number of schools are doing this just to make it easier for our medical field that is getting overrun with a lot of people going there for testing, and it would certainly help our families and us to know if we have a student who tests positive. We would know right early on. I've checked with our attorneys regarding questions of liability, and they have no concern about liability. As a school district, we are covered by Maine tort law, and that protects us. The only thing that we would need to make sure is that the proper approvals are in place. We would certainly want to make sure that parents are comfortable with us providing that test. But rather than me just working independently with the nurses to register ourselves to gain access to this test, I thought since we were having a meeting tonight, I would run it by you to make sure that you were also in support of us providing this in our school district.
So do the nurses have PAPR suits?
I don't know what PAPR suits are. I know that they have full PPE gear. They have gowns, they have masks, and they have the good masks. And they've been fitted for the good masks. They have the and I can't.
So they don't have the hood with the negative pressure in the hose and.
Yeah, no. But they do have the good mask. They also have a face shield. They have the gloves. They have all of that equipment.
Okay.
Just a question, what did the nurses say, Pat, did you query them?
Yeah, we've involved them in the conversation. Initially, the nurses that I heard from were concerned. The biggest concern was 1, liability. And 2, the other concern was, and we haven't completely resolved this concern, that if we provide testing at school, that there may be parents who will send their child to school with symptoms, knowing that there's testing that will take place. So
I think it's critical to stay in yellow to get as many tests as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like the nurses being the liability in the equation. Makes me nervous. You know, like that we're putting them out there. I don't know. I'm indifferent still.
We could test them as long as the parents didn't want them to be tested.
yeah, the student doesn't have to be if a parent doesn't want them to be. And again, regardless of whether we're doing the testing or not, any student, any staff member, any adult who has symptoms, they need to stay home. So, Patrick?
You actually just answered my question. I was just wondering if the tests were going to be given after parents are contacted and permission was given, or is there going to be a waiver, a blanket waiver for the year?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, Patrick. I'm not certain if it will be permission for every time the test is provided, or whether it's a blanket waiver. That is something that we would work on with the Department of Education.
But parents would be asked for permission before.
Yes.
It's not going to be just done. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is something different, something we've never done before. And I'm not comfortable in just saying it's available and having a student walk into the nurse's office and have us give it to them without parents' prior permission.
I just know there's certain circumstances that there's a waiver form at the beginning of the year for medications and stuff. This is just kind of a whole different beast, like the entire situation. So
yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Patrick. I think it should be a different form.
okay, thank you.
Teresa?
Patrick actually covered my question.
Thank you. Is there a way that we could do testing in a separate location so that the students wouldn't even come inside the building if they had symptoms? Could the test be conducted? I mean, that's how they do it at like the University of Maine and USM, and they have a pop-up or a.
We're not set up to do that, Becky, and it's not intended for families to send their children to school with symptoms just so that they can be tested. It is intended for if during the school day a student demonstrates that they have symptoms, then we would test them. So if that's the case, we have the isolation rooms. And that's why we have put in so much money into the ventilation system. So my guess is that the nurses would take the students to the isolation room and do it there away from other students.
It just makes me nervous. All of it makes me nervous, but okay.
Pat and Becky. So my wife's the ed tech in another district, and they actually take everybody's temperature when they enter the school. I mean, I thought early on we were talking about that, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, we may have talked about it at one point, but the guidance from the Department of Education instead was to have that done at home. So it's the expectation that when families, when they send their children or staff members before they come to school, they are supposed to take their temperature prior to coming to school. There is a student handbook that outlines that, and staff members sign off on their handbook indicating that they will do just that.
Well, we all know how that works, right? I mean, I'm not saying parents don't care, but I mean, is there any way we could stay in yellow? I think that would be something that we need to think about.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you very well, Matt.
I understand that parents care, but I think that's something we need to think about. If it keeps us in yellow, I think we need to think about that.
Okay. I mean, I don't know the cost of those, and I'm not sure how they are providing the personnel to be able to test every single student as they enter into the building. So that would have to be investigated, Matt.
And wasn't there research done early on saying that the temperature wasn't really a surefire way that somebody had it anyway? It just seems to me at this point like it would be a waste of resources and money to invest in all that, when my school nurse said that that's not really, we don't do it at my school. It's just something we decided not to do because it wasn't really, I don't know the right word I'm looking for at this point in the evening. Just something that, I mean.
Could I speak to that for just a second? I was on the facilities committee and we looked at those, and the remote sensors where you don't have any contact to the forehead, just a little, evidently they're not nearly as accurate as they were purported to be. And the only one that is really accurate is the forehead swipe method. And then you've got a problem with additional contact and that sort of thing. And that's why we've at the beginning of the summer, we were all ready to figure out how to get all the kids through, get all their temperatures taken, and get them into class. Well, by the end of summer, all of the data and recommendations from the local CDC and the DOE was, no, this is not a good idea. Whether the district is doing it, I don't know, but that's the only comment I have.
Thank you, Jim. I had completely forgotten that we had done some of that work. And there was also the talk about if a student is outside in the heat and they come into the building, we would have to have them go way into the building so that the outside temperature didn't have an impact on the temperature or on the thermometer. So that's right. I'd forgotten about that work.
It was also in the winter time we were looking at that false negative,
right?
Because of the cold weather. I have one other question. Is it possible? Are we going to offer testing to somebody who walks in the front door, a student whose parent would like to have them tested because Uncle Joe has tested positive over here and maybe a third or fourth relationship has had contact? Are we going to offer testing to those people on request, or is it only for those that are possibly looking bad?
I don't have an answer yet, Jim.
Okay.
We haven't worked out the kind of the rules and the expectations. If we move forward, we would have to be really clear with parents as to what is permitted. And the nurses and I haven't discussed it yet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So if there's no real opposition to this, I mean, actually, maybe I would ask a vote. So it's official that we are going to offer this rapid testing in our school district. And I see a couple questions. Tony was first.
Yeah, I'm for the most part before it. I just want to see if the nurses have. Do the nurses have a protocol for like isolating kids when they present with symptoms, and then they have to prepare to take the test? Is that going to fit in with the isolation room, or is that?
They do.
It's an additional activity for them now.
Yeah, they do have a protocol for the isolation room. I mean, I can assure you, I can't answer your question, Tony, but I can assure you that all of this will be done with the nurses. You know, I'm not going to be making any decisions about this without the nurses. The protocols would be developed with them. If we do it, they have to be right at the table, developing what those expectations are going to be, because they have to be manageable. They have to be manageable for them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Teresa?
I've just been thinking about it, and whereas there have been several false positives, I'm wondering, I mean, just hypothetically, if we had a student that had a false positive, we sent them home, they had to be quarantined, but they actually weren't positive, what kind of liability that would bring. And also with the new urgent care right up Brunswick Avenue, you're in and out. I'm just wondering about our liability and, you know, what would become of that for any perhaps false positives when they weren't, or people can be really funny. I'm just throwing that out there.
So as I mentioned, I've already run this by our attorneys, and there is no liability issue, that we fall under the Maine Law Tort Act and we're fine. So, you know, unless we are completely negligent, there is no liability issue. I don't know about the testing in Gardner. I do know that we have had some individuals in our district who have had to drive to Brunswick to actually be tested. So I interpret that to mean that the urgent care up here may be a bit overrun with testing, and they're not able to accommodate all of the tests. So people are indeed leaving our community to receive those tests.
That is accurate. and having to really look to find.
So Nancy is asking, would it be possible to have a motion to give the nurses and the superintendent permission to move forward as they feel reasonable? And she would be more comfortable leaving it up to those involved. So I'm going to say, Nancy, is that a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion.
I second it.
Seconded by Veronica. Any further conversation from board members? Pat, would you read the roll?
Becky Fless,
Yes.
Veronica Babcock,
Yes.
Nancy Fortier-Brown,
Yes.
Teresa Garrett,
Yes.
Matthew Lillybridge,
Yes.
Jim Lothridge,
Yes.
Nicole Medor, Matthew Marshall, Patrick Saucier,
Yes.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yes.
Tony Veit,
Yes.
Quentin Martin,
Yes.
Gwen Boldick-Naziak.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the board chair's report, MSBA Annual Fall Conference. I'll be really brief. It was 2 days this year. It was 100% virtual. We had a keynote speaker and an endnote speaker. Keynote speaker was John Broderick, and he is from the Hitchcock Medical Center at Dartmouth University. He talked about the greatest work of his entire life was going around to communities and making certain that communities are aware of the of mental illness and how it manifests itself in much different ways than one might expect. He is the parent of a child who struggles with a mental illness, and he did a very, very powerful keynote speech and then a secondary question and answer. It was really very good. Throughout the day, there were countless workshops put on by Drummond and Woodsum regarding anything from contract negotiations to social media to implicit bias, all the kind of buzzwords and things that we need to be aware of at this particular period of time, in a particularly difficult climate that we've been living in. The EndNote speaker was Lawrence Alexander, and he works, his specialty is around implicit bias, racial injustice, and talking about that within communities, helping people to recognize their implicit biases and the difficulties that it poses, even in a community that's white. As white as Maine is, that it's just here, and how to be aware of it and how to work toward a world that works for everyone. Jim was our delegate at Delegate Assembly. Alyssa also attended for the 2 days. Alyssa won prizes. Jim and I did not, which is very sad, right? We just worked hard. And Jim, did you want to say anything about Delegate Assembly?
Sure, I'll just real quick, the longest delegate assembly in the history of the association.
It
We
is
spent
true.
3 hours on the first item, which was distance learning, which it was a very complicated approach. We did pass all of our resolutions. I think this may help us for the future with how we approach distance learning. The second one was the support of building a stronger family support for education, equity in education. Those are both kind of no-brainers. We had a little bit of discussion on them, but there was nobody in opposition to them. Then we got into the ability to do our board meetings remotely on an ongoing basis, because we've had such great turnout with the public coming to our, we have probably 100 people with us right now that we could never accommodate in the boardroom. So it's going to take some work in the legislature to get that done, but I think I think it'll happen. And but those were things I did, and I believe we did not get the questions to you in any reasonable amount of time. It was not our fault, not my fault, not anybody's fault. The resolutions committee has promised that next year, whether we're remote or in person, they will get those questions out to us earlier so that everybody on our board will have a chance to chime in on what's going on or what we'd like to see happen with the resolution. So that's my long and short of it. It was a privilege to represent the district, and thank you for the opportunity.
It was the longest meeting in the history of the association, but it was rich with conversation. And Jim, I thank you for being part of that. That was really great. Alyssa won 2 gift cards, $200, I think, to LL Bean. And what's the other one, Alyssa?
It just Amazon, but not bad for my first conference.
Not bad. I think that's
thank
pretty
you.
great. Yeah.
But that was great. The app was pretty awesome. That made it easy to interact with folks. And there was a leaderboard. I was joking with Becky. Me and some woman from Region 5 were like neck and neck for number 3 on commenting. But, you know, good way to do it in these times. So
they used an app called Hoova, and
Yeah.
It's really easy to use. Something that was completely new. I couldn't think of anything to comment, Alyssa. You were just bam, 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 bam. I talk a lot, but I could not think of anything to comment. So
I have one comment on Hoova.
Yes.
I could not put the app on my phone.
Oh.
Maybe because I'm too darn old, but I think it's actually my phone didn't have enough space on it, so I maybe need. But anyways, it was I had a difficulty with that, and so that maybe next year I'll have something better. But so if I ignored anybody's comment, it wasn't because I didn't want to talk to you. It's just because I couldn't.
Just wasn't working for you. Okay. Well, thanks for that. Other questions or Matthew Lillibridge?
Hey, Becky, I just had a comment and Alyssa posted something, but it was something different from what I was going to say. Comment master. As everyone's talking, I look back at the top chat thing and there's a lot of concern, I guess, with people and testing. And I'm not even getting into the legality of it, but all the tests now are not the stab your brain tests that they were of a few months ago, which might be giving some of the parents pause. My little guy had eye surgery, last month, and I was surprised that even he got the lower nose Q-tip type of thing. So besides getting permission, if we can just articulate to the parents that it's not very invasive for kids to get a COVID test nowadays. And I'm sure the rapid testing might be even easier, but just to allay certain fears about, stress. It's also flu shot season. Some people don't like needles, but, just let parents know if we can somehow. And Pat, I'm adding to the length of your letter, I know, but it could be a different communication, but just to let parents know it's not as bad as it used to, or at least it was, a short time ago, a few months ago.
Yeah, that would not be included in any communication that will go out tomorrow. That would be a different letter for a different day.
Thank you. Any further comments about fall conference? Seeing none, moving on. MSAD11 election results. I'd like to congratulate Tony Veet for being reelected to our school board, and I'd also like to say thank you for supporting me in my election to continue on the school board. It's an honor and a pleasure to serve this great community and to work with such cool people. I can't even imagine that anybody has it better than us. So there you go. So thank you so much. Those are the election results. Superintendent report.
I just have 2 things very quickly. A couple weeks ago, we sent out a survey to families asking them to notify us whether they were eligible for free and reduced lunches without providing us any of their financial data. We learned from the state that we were going to be able to do that one time only because we're under the waiver for the summer food program. And so we thought this was a great way of getting families to potentially share that information with us without having to disclose any of their personal financial information. And so I just wanted to let you know that we have over 1,900 students in the district, and we received 594 people responded. And of those who responded, 34.7% indicated that they qualified. 65.3% said they did not qualify. So that did not help improve our numbers. We were hoping that by doing the survey that we would see our numbers, our percentage increase to somewhere between 40, 50%. That didn't happen. We have talked about what we can do next year, and what we have determined that we'll probably be able to do is that in order for a family to get a laptop, they will have to fill out this form. And so if you tie the form to the laptop, we will hopefully see the response that we really need moving forward. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we're trying to do everything we can in regard to that. The other thing that I have is facility rentals, and I just wanted to make sure that you are all aware that I am not approving facility rentals for any outside organizations. We are keeping our facilities closed just for our own students. There are just a number of problems that would surface if we were to open the buildings for outside organizations, primarily the cleaning, and who would be responsible for the cleaning that would have to take place afterwards. So just in case you have organizations who speak to you about the use of our gyms for, say, basketball tournaments or things that often go on during the winter, I just wanted you to know that I personally have not been approving any of those, nor have our building administrators. So that's all that I have for my report. So Becky, you're on mute.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the superintendent? Okie doke. Public comment to respond on any public questions received during the meeting. I think
So
we've addressed them, sort of, haven't we?
Right, but we have a number of top chat comments. So Bryden Haskell, hi folks, live instruction has proven very difficult. It makes me fear for our kids' education. Also, Bryden Haskell, thank you for all your hard work and your dedication to our kids. Becky Seberg, any in-person instruction my kids can get is better than none. Bryden Haskell, I agree, Becky. I think yellow is good. Jane Staples, if we stay in yellow and our child has to self-quarantine, will they be able to join his or her class virtually like they are doing now in red? I don't know what grade level that is, but if it's high school, absolutely, and that's what we're working towards in our middle school. Correct, Angela? Okay. Brittany Gould, I feel as though testing should remain up to the parents to do COVID tests with their child at the parent's own discretion. She also states, being a parent that had a child with cold-like symptoms that were actually allergy related, I would not be happy that my child were tested at school. And again, we would not test without parent permission. Ashley Healy, I agree with the concerns, but my question is, before a test is administered at school, would a parent be asked before each and every test? That is the details that we will need to work out. She also says, I would never want my child to have a test of this manner without me being notified each and every time or without me being present. So that is great feedback for us to think about. Ashley Healy also says, Maine General will not test anyone without his doctor's note, and people cannot just walk in and request a test. Melinda Cook, my little guy, had one at Kennebec pediatrics a couple weeks ago, and it was still very invasive, not a Q-tip one. There were no phone calls, and
There's one more top chat.
yep, Melinda Cook, and they did both nostrils, which they said is their procedure there. So that's what we have, folks. Those are all the comments. And this is great. We've never had so many comments from members of our public. So I really appreciate all of them sharing their thoughts with us.
Yes, this is great. Thank you all so very much for watching and attending and for bringing us all of your concerns. These are complicated questions to ask, and without input from the community, we wouldn't make the decisions as well as we do. So it's really important to have that.
So now the board needs to transition to a different meeting. Our Google Meets, they now have rooms where we could actually go into a separate room to meet, but we don't yet know how to make that work. Terry and I have not practiced it yet. So for today, you're going to need to leave this session. Remember, you are not going to disconnect yourself. Just mute your camera and mute your mic. I sent you an invitation through the calendar. Please go to the calendar. This is for board members only. So except for Quentin and Gwen, you get to say goodnight. And all of the administrators and everyone else say goodnight. But all the board members, I will see you over at the other meeting. Teresa?
Pat, we need to make a motion to adjourn?
No, there is no motion. You're not adjourning. You're moving. Oh, but there is a motion to go into executive session. Thank you. So why don't we do that?
I move we go into executive session. This is Tony.
I second that.
Great. All right. Becky, do you want me to call the roll?
Yes, please call the roll, Pat.
Becky Fless?
Yes.
Veronica Babcock?
Yes.
Nancy Fortier-Brown?
Yes.
Teresa Garrett?
Yes.
Matthew Lillibridge?
Yep.
Jim Lothridge?
Yes.
Nicole Medore? Was that a yes, Nicole? Okay. Matt Marshall? Patrick Saucier?
Yes.
Alyssa Tracy?
Yes, and thank you everyone for sticking with us.
And Tony Veet.
Yes.
That is unanimous that we go into executive session, and it is 9:03. All right, I will see the board in executive session. Everyone else, good night. Thank you very much.
Terry? Did Teresa disappear?
She sent a message saying that she can't find us. I just checked my invitation and it's there.
Teresa, go to your calendar and it's underneath the board meeting. The board meeting will be in your board calendar. So if you go to your school board email account and you go to the waffle at the top right, and you click on it, and you go to calendar, and you click on it, it will show you tonight's meeting, and then it will also show you the executive session just beneath it in a lighter color. Click on it, and that should bring you in. But don't forget to turn off your camera when you leave this one. And we'll see you in there. Well, there.
Okay, so we are back.
Jim, this is feeling a little like delegate assembly.
Yeah. All right, so as a result of the executive session, there is no motion. So Becky, are we all set to adjourn for the night?
I think we are. Thank you everyone so much for this really long meeting and for your robust participation and your desire to keep our kids healthy, safe, and well educated. As let's see, what's his name would say, above average. Garrison Keeler. Keeping our kids above average, which they are, regardless. So, on that
Okay,
note,
are we good, Becky?
we're good. Can we go home
All right.
now?
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.